Science continually encounters evidence demonstrating that the world's structure is considerably more complex than commonly assumed. This narrative exemplifies this assertion. Lake Diamante in Argentina is a unique ecosystem. Its shores are vibrant with life, contrasting sharply with the unusual organisms found in its waters. The lake water contains high concentrations of sulfuric acid and arsenic, the latter exceeding acceptable drinking water levels by a factor of 100. Situated at an altitude of nearly 4,000 meters, the lake experiences extreme conditions, low temperatures, and intense solar radiation. Nevertheless, life persists within the lake. In 2012, researchers from the University of Buenos Aires discovered microscopic bacterial colonies protected by a crystalline shell. This shell provides protection against ultraviolet radiation, acid, and heavy metals. These bacteria not only survive but also actively reproduce, utilizing sulfur compounds as an energy source. Studying these bacteria may offer insights into potential life forms on Venus or in the subglacial oceans of a Jovian moon. It's noteworthy that when these bacteria were removed from their natural environment and placed in a standard laboratory setting, they perished. Their survival depends on extreme conditions. The second point, octopuses possess the ability to dream. In the year 2020, a group of Brazilian neuroscientists published data from video recordings of sleeping octopuses. The footage shows an octopus, completely still, suddenly changing color as if acting out a hunting, hiding, and attacking sequence. The octopus first lightens, as if camouflaged in the sand, then develops spots, mimicking hunting behavior, and finally shoots out a tentacle. All this occurs without waking. The study revealed that octopuses, like mammals, experience different sleep phases, including an active phase analogous to the rapid eye movement REM sleep in humans, during which we dream. The unusual aspect is the octopus's radically different brain structure. Neurons are distributed throughout its body, with a majority located outside the head. Despite this, a sleep phase corresponding to dreaming exists. Researchers hypothesize this is either convergent evolution, the independent development of similar mechanisms in different lineages, or evidence that dreaming is older than previously believed. It's possible that dreaming originated in the common ancestor of humans and octopuses over 500 million years ago. Dreams, therefore, might predate the vertebrate spine. The third fact: goldfish can hear music and differentiate between composers such as Bach and Stravinsky. Scientists at Tohoku Gakuen University in Japan in 2004 performed an experiment. Fish were put in an aquarium and played excerpts of classical compositions. Food was added to the water when Bach was played. No food was added when Stravinsky was played. After a few days, the fish swam to the feeding area only when Bach was playing. The sequence was then changed. Food was given after Stravinsky. Once again, after some time, the fish learned to predict the music, becoming active and swimming towards the feeding area. The experiments were repeated with various composers, different volumes, and even different fish species. The results remained consistent. This demonstrates that fish not only hear, but also process sound patterns, remembering and categorizing them. In their natural habitat, this is crucial for recognizing sounds of currents, predator calls, or vibrations from other fish. Crucially, this refutes the old belief about fish as silent creatures without hearing or consciousness. A goldfish's memory isn't limited to 3 seconds, as is often joked, but lasts for weeks, and they have musical taste. Below the Earth's crust, at a depth of more than 2,000 kilometers, is the planet's outer core, a massive layer of liquid iron and nickel with a radius of about 3,500 kilometers. This constitutes a liquid metal ocean, perpetually in motion, creating convection currents. These currents generate the Earth's magnetic field. This process mirrors a school science experiment with a coil. Moving metal produces an electromagnetic field. This field shields the Earth from solar radiation and preserves the atmosphere. Without it, the Earth would have lost its atmosphere, similar to what occurred on Mars. Remarkably, the core is unstable. Satellite observations reveal fluctuations, shifts, and weakening of the magnetic field by tens of percent over a century. Regions exist with nearly zero field density, such as the South Atlantic anomaly. Scientists suggest the core pulsates, its rotation varies, and pole reversals occur infrequently. On average, magnetic pole reversals happen every 500,000 years. The last reversal occurred approximately 700,000 years ago. We are currently in an overdue state, and the timing of the next reversal is uncertain. The fifth point, the density of neutron star material is extraordinary. A teaspoonful of this material weighs 4 billion tons. This is not figurative language, it's a statement of physical fact. Following a supernova explosion, a remnant core remains, gravitationally compressed to an extreme degree. An object the size of a city, yet possessing a mass comparable to that of the Sun. Within this object, there are no atoms in the conventional sense, no ordinary matter. The pressure is so extreme that electrons are forced into protons, resulting in a structure composed entirely of neutrons, similar to an atomic nucleus but on a vastly larger scale. These celestial bodies are known as neutron stars. Even a single cubic centimeter of this material, if transported to Earth, would penetrate the crust, mantle, and core of the planet. However, this is physically impossible due to the extreme pressures and temperatures required for its existence, conditions unattainable on Earth's surface. Neutron stars are also among the fastest spinning objects in the universe. Some complete hundreds of rotations per second. This rapid rotation gives rise to pulsars, sources of radio signals that pulse with remarkable precision. Scientists have even utilized pulsars as cosmic navigational beacons, developing a system analogous to GPS but designed for interstellar travel. In an environment characterized by immense density, time and space exhibit different behaviors, a fact underscored by the single, unassuming figure, 4 billion tons. Sixth fact. The ordinary zebra is unable to thrive in captivity, despite numerous attempts at domestication. It might seem logical that a horse with stripes would be easily trained for riding or work, yet this is not the case. Throughout history, zebras have been used in military contexts, harnessed to vehicles, and trained for transporting goods. Colonial officers in Africa during the 19th century were especially persistent in these efforts. Trypanosomiasis was decimating horse populations, making zebras appear as a perfect substitute. However, every attempt resulted in the same outcome: defiance, aggression, biting, and unpredictable behavior. This is not due to a lack of intelligence. Zebras possess remarkable memory and coordination. The problem stems from their psychology. Unlike horses, zebras are solitary and territorial creatures. They lack hierarchical structures, such as an alpha stallion, and they show no inclination towards submission. Moreover, they lack a breaking point, a moment where a wild animal acknowledges human authority. All training attempts only induced stress and aggression. Even when British zoologist Walter Rothschild in the early 20th century used zebras to pull a carriage through London, it was a singular event, not a regular occurrence. Each zebra is an individual with a unique pattern and personality. It remains a wild animal to this day, not for lack of effort or understanding, but because its evolutionary trajectory has been different. Seventh fact. Every raindrop harbors a bacterium. This isn't conjecture, it's a confirmed microscopic finding. Rain formation isn't spontaneous. Water vapor requires a condensation nucleus, a minute particle, to coalesce into a drop. This nucleus is frequently dust or salt, but in numerous instances, it's a living organism. Researchers at Louisiana State University and the National Center for Atmospheric Research in the United States identified Pseudomonas bacteria in rainwater samples in the early 2000s. These microorganisms aren't passively transported by wind. They can trigger ice formation above freezing, making them effective crystallization centers. Moreover, they appear to utilize clouds for dispersal. Their activity peaks in spring in some areas and autumn in others, suggesting adaptation to environmental conditions. It's hypothesized that certain species evolved specifically for raindrop travel. Tropical regions show even greater diversity. Entire communities of microorganisms disseminated via precipitation. Therefore, rain isn't merely water, it's a biological process involving atmospheric bacteria influencing climate, nutrient cycles, and disease distribution. Observing a thunderstorm reveals the sky as a vast natural laboratory where life not only survives, but actively governs weather patterns. Eighth fact, the cells in your body don't agree on your age. This is literally true. Human age isn't a single figure, but a complex mixture. Different tissues have different biological ages. The oldest cells are located in the eye lens. They haven't been replaced since birth. Skull bones are approximately 10 to 12 years younger than you, while intestinal epithelial cells are renewed in a matter of days. The heart partially renews itself, with about 1% of cells replaced annually. The liver, however, completely renews itself in about 500 days, or roughly 2 years. In 2013, a team of Swedish researchers from the Karolinska Institute used carbon dating to determine the age of heart cells in individuals of varying ages. They discovered that even 80-year-olds possess cardiomyocytes only a few years old. The brain is unique. Neurons rarely regenerate, but glial cells, which support neurons, do divide and renew. This leads to a paradox. I am one, but the body is a composite of cells of different ages. Therefore, age isn't simply the number on a passport, but the average of trillions of cellular lifespans. This opens up possibilities for future diagnostic techniques. A biological passport showing where the body ages faster and where it ages slower. The ninth fact. Snails are capable of entering a state of hibernation lasting up to 3 years, after which they fully recover. This is not a hyperbole. A documented instance exists where an Egyptian desert snail, Aramina desertorum, remained in anabiosis for 48 months. It was found in 1846 on the inside of a herbarium box within the British Museum. Initially believed to be deceased, it revived in 1850, nearly 4 years later, exhibiting movement, feeding, and trail-leaving behaviors. Scientists were astonished. Snails possess the ability to completely cease activity, retracting into their shells and sealing the aperture with a calcareous lid. In this state, their metabolic processes are virtually non-existent. The heart stops, respiration ceases, yet the cells remain viable in a suspended state. This phenomenon is particularly prevalent in desert environments, characterized by prolonged periods without rainfall. Water serves as the primary trigger. Contact with moisture on the shell initiates the revival process. Biologists utilize snails as a model organism for cryobiology and medicine, hoping to leverage their survival mechanisms for the development of human anabiosis technologies. If a tiny creature can halt time for years, then the possibility for humans is not so distant. 10th fact. Certain plants possess the ability to count up to 5. Researchers in botany at the University of Bonn, Germany, uncovered a surprising phenomenon while observing the behavior of beans and peas. As a stem seeks support, it moves slowly in a circular pattern, a process known as nutation. Scientists documented how the stem tip explores its surroundings, much like searching for a post or stick. Crucially, these movements are not random. The plant appears to retain a memory of previously explored areas and avoids revisiting them. The experiment involved placing 1 to 5 obstacles in front of the plant, prompting it to develop a strategy for navigating around them. After repeated attempts, the sprouts learned to avoid previously unsuccessful routes. The introduction of a 5th obstacle is particularly noteworthy. In most instances, the plant ceased to respond, as if reaching a processing limit. Mathematical modeling revealed that this behavior aligns with models of short-term memory and counting, up to 5 objects. This is remarkable. Lacking a brain or neurons, the plant exhibits a response similar to that of a simple animal. Scientists hypothesize that underlying this behavior are biochemical pathways, where each stimulus leaves a temporary mark in the plant tissues. This is analogous to short thoughts composed of proteins. In essence, the seemingly simple green sprout is capable of remembering, analyzing, and making decisions, though silently. Fact number 11. The human eye is capable of perceiving a candle's light from a distance of up to 30 kilometers, given perfect conditions. This is not a fable, but a scientifically proven fact. In 2014, a team of researchers at the University of Rochester in the United States performed a series of tests focusing on visual perception in extremely dark and clear atmospheric conditions. The findings were remarkable. In the absence of light pollution, fog, atmospheric pollutants, and cloud cover, a human being can detect the light of a single candle at a distance comparable to the width of the English Channel. This exceptional sensitivity stems from the photoreceptors in the eye, particularly the rods responsible for night vision. These rods can register a single photon, a fundamental particle of light, in total darkness. While multiple photons are needed for the signal to reach the brain, the threshold of detection remains astonishingly low. During the experiments, participants were placed in specially designed dark chambers, and the moment of maximum pupil dilation and the brain's initial registration of light impulses were recorded. Despite the rarity of complete darkness in urban environments, our visual system retains this ancient ability, crucial for survival in times when spotting a distant fire was a matter of life and death. Even surrounded by modern artificial lighting, the human eye retains its capacity to detect faint light sources over considerable distances. Fact number 12. At the peak of Mount Everest, water boils at 69 degrees Celsius. This may seem counterintuitive, but it's a consequence of basic physics. Air pressure at sea level is approximately 1 atmosphere. However, at 8,848 meters, the pressure is reduced to 1/3. The boiling point of a liquid is directly related to atmospheric pressure. Lower pressure facilitates the transition of water molecules from liquid to gaseous state. Thus, on Everest, water boils at 69 to 70 degrees Celsius. This presents challenges for cooking. Food takes longer to cook, and boiling water lacks the heat necessary to fully cook rice or pasta. Mountaineers employ specialized equipment and sealed containers to mitigate this issue. Scientifically, this phenomenon serves as a basis for experiments investigating liquid behavior under low-pressure conditions, such as those found in space and on other planets. It's ironic that at Earth's highest point, boiling water is the coldest. The 13th fact. A whale's heart beats twice per minute. This is not a sign of inactivity, but rather a characteristic of its lifestyle. The blue whale, the largest animal on Earth, can weigh up to 180 tons and measure over 30 meters in length. Its heart weighs approximately half a ton. In the year 2019, scientists from the Monterey Bay Aquarium Research Institute, using sensors attached to the whale's skin, recorded its actual heart rate for the first time. They observed an unexpected phenomenon. During dives exceeding 100 meters in depth, the heart rate decreases to 2 and sometimes even 1 beat per minute. This conserves oxygen and redirects blood flow to essential organs. Upon surfacing and inhaling air, the heart rate increases to 30 to 40 beats per minute. This variable heart rate is an adaptation to its extreme environment, where each breath is crucial. Moreover, due to its immense size and high energy consumption, the whale's heart operates near its maximum capacity. Scientists believe this is why blue whales cannot grow any larger. Their hearts would be unable to handle the strain. This is the limit. A heart beating twice a minute in the quiet ocean, sustaining the life of a massive creature. 14th fact, lightning can propagate upwards. This is not figurative language, but a scientifically documented phenomenon previously mistaken for measurement errors. Commonly, lightning is understood as an electrical discharge traveling from a cloud to the Earth's surface. Yet, since the early 2000 years, satellites monitoring thunderstorms have consistently recorded bursts of radiation and light directed upwards, into the stratosphere and beyond. These phenomena are termed sprites and blue jets. These discharges can reach altitudes of up to 80 kilometers, forming large luminous structures resembling jellyfish or ancient trees. A particularly striking instance was documented in 2009 above France. A flash reached an altitude of 90 kilometers and lasted approximately 2 milliseconds. The explanation lies in the fact that a thunderstorm is not merely an interaction between a cloud and the ground, but also a powerful interaction within the atmosphere itself. When an exceptionally high charge accumulates, it can penetrate the upper atmospheric layers where air is scarce. Consequently, the lightning reverses direction. Some researchers suggest these flashes might influence the chemical composition of the upper atmosphere and possibly even radio communications. Therefore, a single flash over a Texan field is not merely a visual display, but an impulse potentially affecting atmospheric layers over another continent. Lightning is not always a downward discharge. Sometimes it erupts upwards, and further. The 15th fact. The number of bacteria in the human body significantly surpasses the number of human cells, approximately 10 times more. This is not an illness, but a normal physiological state. Humans coexist symbiotically with trillions of microorganisms inhabiting the intestines, skin, respiratory tracts, and even the eyes. At the beginning of the second decade of the 21st century, it was believed that there were up to 10 bacterial cells for every human cell. Present-day estimates are somewhat lower, roughly 1 to 1 or 3 to 1, but the fundamental point remains. A human being is not solely themselves. The gut microbiome deserves special attention. Thousands of bacterial species inhabit it, not only assisting in digestion, but also participating in hormone production, protecting against infections, and even influencing emotional state. In 2012, research under the Human Microbiome Project revealed the unique composition of the microflora, comparable to the uniqueness of fingerprints. Even genetically identical twins possess different microbiomes. Moreover, an imbalance in the microflora is associated with numerous diseases, ranging from autoimmune to psychiatric disorders. Methods of microbiota transplantation are being developed, where bacteria from one individual are introduced into another for therapeutic purposes. We tend to perceive bacteria as hostile organisms. In actuality, we are an ecosystem where microscopic symbionts play a dominant role. Without them, a human is an incomplete biological entity. With bacteria, a complete organism. Consequently, each of us is we. The 16th fact. The rustling of leaves is caused by the movement of earthworms beneath them. This is not a figurative expression, but a scientifically documented acoustic phenomenon, recorded with highly sensitive microphones and laser imaging technology. In the year 2023, a team of British scientists from Cambridge University observed unusual sound patterns in the forest undergrowth. In the mornings, particularly after rainfall, the leaves emitted a quiet crackling sound. Initially, this was attributed to falling raindrops or thermal expansion. However, infrared camera data revealed a correlation between these sounds and the activity of earthworms under the leaf litter. Their movement through damp soil generates minute vibrations that are transmitted to the leaves via their stems and petioles. As an earthworm moves, it produces vibrations that resonate throughout the forest floor. This sound is imperceptible to the human ear, but readily detectable by instruments. The significance of this discovery lies in the potential use of these sounds as navigational cues for birds and insects foraging for food. Furthermore, it highlights the remarkable sensitivity of the ecosystem. Even the slightest movement acts as a signal. In an interconnected world, even the subtle movement of an earthworm contributes to the overall soundscape of the forest. This is not a metaphor, it is a verifiable scientific observation. The 17th fact: spiders possess musical preferences, not figuratively, but literally. In the year 2016, Researchers at the Massachusetts Institute of Technology performed experiments on Latrodectus spiders, commonly known as black widows. These researchers recorded the vibrations produced by the spiders on their webs and converted these vibrations into audible sound, essentially creating spider melodies. Subsequently, the spiders were exposed to various vibrational patterns, both naturally occurring and artificially generated. The spiders exhibited diverse responses. Some musical patterns stimulated hunting behavior. Others induced fear and attempts to hide, while still others resulted in a state of apparent listening, characterized by stillness and subtle body vibrations, suggesting an analysis of the rhythmic structure. The most pronounced reactions were observed in response to sounds resembling the frequencies of male courtship signals, where males utilize the web as a musical instrument to attract females. This indicates that spiders possess not merely sensory organs, but a sophisticated communication system based on vibrations. The web serves as dwelling, trap, and musical platform simultaneously. The correct music elicits a response akin to a summons. Scientists hypothesize that musical patterns could be employed to manipulate spider behavior, for instance, to guide them and prevent venomous encounters. Music, as a universal language, appears comprehensible even to eight-legged beings. Fact number 18. People glow in the dark. The light is weak, undetectable to the naked eye, but its existence is a documented fact. In 2009, Japanese researchers at the Tohoku Institute employed ultra-sensitive cameras to capture the natural bioluminescent emission from the human body. The cameras registered photons in the visible spectrum, revealing that each individual emits a faint light roughly 1,000 times dimmer than the threshold of human sight. This is not heat or infrared radiation. It's visible light produced by chemical reactions within cells. Oxygen molecules interacting with metabolic byproducts create brief flashes of light, autofluorescence. Intriguingly, the intensity of this luminescence fluctuates throughout the day, peaking around 4 in the afternoon and reaching its nadir after midnight. The face glows brighter than the abdomen, and the chest is less luminous than the forehead. There's also variation between individuals. This discovery could have practical implications. Glow patterns might be used to diagnose metabolic imbalances, inflammation, and even stress levels. While currently invisible to the unaided eye, cameras detect it. Humans are luminous beings. The phrase illuminated thus gains a nearly literal interpretation. Fact number 19. Quantum liquids possess the ability to flow upwards. This phenomenon, termed superfluidity, was initially observed in 1938 during experiments with liquid helium. Upon cooling helium-4 to a temperature below 2.1 of a degree Kelvin, a temperature approaching absolute zero, it exhibits a complete loss of viscosity. Consequently, it becomes superfluid, capable of permeating container walls, ascending tubes despite gravity, and traversing micropores impermeable to ordinary liquids. Researchers at the Helsinki Low Temperature Laboratory conducted an experiment. Placing helium in an open vessel, they observed its efflux not from the bottom, but upwards through the walls. The molecules move in perfect unison, devoid of internal friction. This represents macroscopic quantum behavior. Unlike conventional liquids where intermolecular collisions impede flow, superfluid helium experiences no such resistance. The flow is ideal. This property finds application in advanced cooling technologies, in modeling processes within neutron star cores, and, theoretically, could underpin future energy transport systems with minimal energy loss. A liquid defying friction and gravity, it seems magical. Yet it is simply helium subjected to extreme conditions. Chickens exhibit intelligence comparable to that of a 3-year-old human child. This doesn't encompass mathematical skills or literacy naturally, but in various cognitive tests, they display capabilities previously believed to be unique to mammals. Studies performed at Emory University in the United States revealed that chickens can identify up to 100 individual chicken faces, differentiate between familiar and unfamiliar birds, grasp cause and effect relationships, and even demonstrate empathy. One experiment involved placing a hen in a cage alongside a chick exposed to a gentle air current, causing mild stress. The hen remained unharmed. However, her pulse and stress hormone levels rose in tandem with the chick's distress. This indicates empathy, a trait long dismissed in avian species. Another study trained chickens to locate food in sealed containers. They rapidly learned the food's location and adapted their behavior to changes in conditions, showcasing cognitive adaptability. Instances of strategic deception have also been documented. A rooster simulated finding grain to attract a hen. This evidence suggests that the chicken brain is not a symbol of unintelligence, but a significantly underestimated processing center. Therefore, when observing a chicken's gaze, remember, behind it lies memory, decision-making, and possibly a subtle emotion. 21st fact: the odor of space is often described as a blend of seared meat and molten metal. Space itself lacks a scent in the traditional sense, as breathing is impossible within a vacuum. Nevertheless, astronaut suits and the International Space Station's exterior surfaces absorb molecules during extravehicular activities, EVAs, subsequently releasing them indoors. Upon helmet removal, astronauts perceive a distinctive aroma, frequently documented. Descriptions vary, ranging from incandescent iron to a dusty barbecue, welding fumes, and ozone. This phenomenon stems from space chemistry. In the vacuum of space, ultraviolet radiation and solar wind particles decompose molecules into free radicals. These radicals, notably aromatic hydrocarbons, adhere to the surfaces of spacesuits and modules. Upon entering the spacecraft, they react with the air, producing the characteristic odor. In 2009, NASA contracted Omega Ingredients to synthesize a mixture closely replicating this space smell. This was employed in training simulations to familiarize astronauts with the experience. Even the silent emptiness of space, therefore, possesses a unique olfactory signature. This signature resembles the smell of seared iron on an unseen cosmic grill. The 22nd fact: the bluish color of veins is not due to the color of the blood. Human blood is always red, ranging from bright scarlet in the arteries to dark crimson in the veins. Nevertheless, veins appear blue beneath the skin, particularly in individuals with fair skin. This phenomenon is explained by the way light interacts with the body's tissues. Skin transmits light waves of varying lengths differently. Shorter wavelengths, blue, are reflected more readily and penetrate less deeply, while longer wavelengths, red, penetrate further. When light strikes the skin, a portion of the red light is absorbed or scattered at depth, whereas blue wavelengths reflect closer to the surface. The visual system interprets this as a bluish hue in the veins. The effect is further enhanced by contrast. Bluish shadows against the warmer skin tones intensify the perception of blue rivers beneath the epidermis. Researchers at Harvard Medical School conducted simulations. A vein placed on the skin's surface would appear dark red. However, when embedded a few millimeters below the surface, it takes on a bluish appearance. And no, aristocrats did not possess blue blood. It is merely a coincidental effect of thin skin and bright sunlight. Therefore, the blue appearance of veins is an optical illusion, amplified by the body's optical properties. A beautiful illusion nonetheless. 23rd fact: ice forms in the Sahara Desert every night. Although daytime temperatures may reach 50 degrees Celsius, the nighttime conditions are drastically different. The desert air is exceptionally dry. The sand rapidly radiates heat into space, and the sky is cloudless, lacking any insulation provided by clouds. This results in a significant temperature decrease after sunset. In certain areas, temperatures drop to 0 degrees Celsius or lower. Consequently, thin layers of ice form on surfaces, rocks, vegetation, and metallic objects. In 2010, a research team from the University of Strasbourg conducted nocturnal observations on the Tassili-Niger Plateau and documented consistent freezing temperatures for 7 consecutive nights, despite daytime temperatures exceeding 45 degrees Celsius. This phenomenon is known as radiative cooling. This same principle was employed in ancient Persian ice storage methods. Water containers were placed outdoors in the desert, and they would freeze overnight, regardless of the high ambient temperature. This technique was used as early as the 6th century BC. Thus, one of the planet's hottest regions is also a place where ice formations can be observed. The crucial element is to wait until nightfall and carefully examine the rocks. 24th fact. The ability of plants to perceive sound has been demonstrated. In 2019, researchers at Tel Aviv University showed that cruciferous plants, specifically the sweet evening primrose, respond to sound vibrations. Their experiment involved playing a recording of a bee's buzzing near a plant and subsequently measuring the nectar sugar content. Within 3 minutes of the sound, the plant increased the nectar sugar concentration by 20%. No such response was observed with white noise or other sounds. This indicates that the plant not only detects vibrations but also differentiates between them. The petals function as membranes, capturing sound waves and transmitting mechanical signals to the plant cells. In response to a specific frequency, the plant alters its nectar composition to attract pollinators. This is an efficient and energy-saving method for enhancing reproductive success. Scientists hypothesize that this auditory capacity is present in numerous plant species and represents an ancient, previously unstudied mechanism. It is possible that a complex soundscape exists in nature, with insects, pollen, wind, and plants acting as both sound sources and receivers. However, this botanical music remains imperceptible to us. The 25th fact, the moon has a distinct odor of gunpowder. Every astronaut who has walked on the lunar surface has reported the same smell. Upon re-entering the lunar module and removing their helmets, a pungent odor resembling burnt gunpowder or molten metal filled the cabin. This is not an illusion. Lunar dust particles cling to spacesuits and equipment, and upon contact with the module's oxygen, they undergo a chemical reaction. Lunar dust, or regolith, possesses an unusual composition. It contains numerous sharp, microscopic particles, glass, silicon, metallic fragments, and oxides. The absence of an atmosphere on the moon means that meteorites don't burn up. Instead, they impact the surface, melting it and creating millions of tiny glass spheres and fragments. These particles absorb solar radiation, building up an electrical charge, and upon contact with oxygen, they chemically react, releasing the distinctive smell. Buzz Aldrin and Gene Cernan describe the aroma as unmistakable, unlike anything found on Earth, resembling something on the verge of detonation. Attempts to replicate this smell in Earth-based laboratories have consistently failed. The conditions are too unique. Therefore, the moon exhibits a unique character, perceptible not only visually but also olfactorily. The 26th fact. Have you ever dreamt of an unknown tune? It's a real possibility. Some individuals genuinely compose new music during their sleep. During the 1950s, Paul McCartney awoke with a melody that persistently occupied his thoughts. He recorded it on a tape recorder, played it for his friends, and inquired, "Whose song is this?" They all responded with uncertainty. He then understood the melody originated from his dream. This is how Yesterday was created. Subsequently, numerous scientific papers have been published concerning the phenomenon of dreams containing creative elements. In the 2001s, neuroscientists at the University of Helsinki compiled a collection of verified instances where artists, composers, and even mathematicians conceived new ideas while asleep. It's believed that during rapid eye movement, REM sleep, the brain doesn't merely replay past experiences, but also combines fragments into unexpected arrangements. If a person, particularly a creative one, falls asleep to music or worked with it throughout the day, the brain might blend sounds, reproduce them in a novel sequence, and effectively generate something new. Furthermore, with adequate training, this can be intentionally induced. Musicians involved in a 2001's experiment successfully elicited sound dreams by listening to specific patterns before sleep. Therefore, dreams are not just visual imagery, but also potential musical compositions. The key is to wake up promptly and record the experience. 27th fact: butterflies remember their lives as caterpillars. The process appears to be a complete transformation. The caterpillar creates a cocoon, inside which it disintegrates into a cellular mass, and from this nothingness, a butterfly develops. But in 2008, researchers at the University of Georgia conducted an experiment that changed everything. They trained Manduca sexta moth caterpillars to avoid a particular odor by associating it with a mild electric shock. Subsequently, the caterpillars avoided the odor without the shock. They were then placed in cocoons. When butterflies emerged from the pupa, they were presented with the same odor again. The butterflies also avoided it. This demonstrated that memory, or at least a trace of past experience, survived metamorphosis. It turned out that not all cells are destroyed. Neurons, possibly, are partially preserved, along with fragments of memories. Some scientists believe that metamorphosis is not a complete erasure of information, but a complex restructuring process. A butterfly is not a new life, but a continuation of existence with preserved memory. This alters our understanding of evolution. Even the most drastic change can retain traces of the past. The image of a caterpillar forgetting itself is poetic, but the reality is more intricate. 28th fact: plant pollen has the potential to cause thunderstorms. This unusual yet documented phenomenon is known as thunderstorm asthma and underwent its first extensive study in Melbourne, Australia in 2016. During a powerful thunderstorm, over 8,000 individuals sought hospital treatment for acute asthma attacks. Half of these individuals lacked a prior diagnosis. 9 fatalities resulted. Researchers rapidly established a correlation between the surge in cases and elevated ragweed pollen concentrations coupled with heavy thunderstorm rains. Microscopic examination revealed that when pollen enters a humid cloud, it doesn't settle, but rather ruptures. Each grain fragments into hundreds of microscopic particles, forming an aerosol easily inhaled into the lungs. Furthermore, lightning's electrical discharges can alter particle charge, aiding their dispersal. Consequently, thunderstorms, typically viewed as air purifiers, can, under certain conditions, become allergen distributors. Currently, cities with high ragweed levels monitor thunderstorm conditions. Warnings are issued when relevant factors coincide. This pollen-lightning connection was previously considered illogical. It is now integrated into medical guidelines. Therefore, the next time the scent of a thunderstorm seems refreshing, remember, for some, it may pose a danger. The 29th fact: sharks possess the ability to bioluminesce in the dark, and they do so with remarkable accuracy. Although shark bioluminescence has been observed, detailed research is a relatively recent development. Only in the year 2020 did researchers from the National Oceanography Center in Southampton, employing spectral cameras at significant depths in the Indian Ocean, record a unique phenomenon: glowing patterns on sharks belonging to the genus Etmopterus. These patterns are not merely random spots, but rather organized, symmetrical figures. These sharks reside at depths of up to 1,000 meters in a zone of permanent darkness. Their luminescence is produced by specialized cells called photophores, minute organs containing luminescent pigments. The arrangement of these photophores is highly ordered, along the lateral line, around the gills, and at the fin edges. This resembles a complex schematic, and this is not accidental. The light likely functions as a code for the sharks. For instance, luminous bands on the belly serve as camouflage, making the silhouette less visible from below by matching the ambient light. However, some patterns are species-specific and likely facilitate communication. This is particularly crucial in an environment where vision is the primary means of interaction. Light serves as a language. Moreover, studies have revealed that the patterns on the shark's body align with fractal structures, mathematical patterns exhibiting self-similarity. This indicates that nature has created a shark that not only glows, but also utilizes light to generate geometric patterns. The 30th fact: human bones are living tissues capable of sound perception. Previously, the skeletal system was viewed as a passive structure, primarily providing support, calcium storage, and organ protection. However, current research reveals that bone is a complex organ containing nerves, blood vessels, cells, and, surprisingly, sound receptors. In 2017, scientists at the University of Padua discovered that osteocytes, cells residing within bone tissue, respond to mechanical waves within the audible frequency range. Studies conducted on mice demonstrated that bone exposure to vibrations around 100 Hz activates genes responsible for bone growth and regeneration. This finding aligns with clinical observations. Patients undergoing low-frequency vibration therapy experienced increased bone density. Furthermore, bones play a significant role in hormonal regulation, producing osteocalcin, a protein influencing blood sugar levels, cognitive function, and stress resilience. Consequently, the skeleton is not merely a structural framework, but an active participant in the body's internal communication, responding to mechanical stress, sound waves, contributing to metabolism, and impacting brain function. Research indicates that prolonged weightlessness leads to a diminished ability of bones to perceive vibrations, resulting in bone degradation. Therefore, maintaining bone health requires not only calcium and exercise, but also, to some extent, sound stimulation. 31st fact: a mosquito's internal structure includes a proboscis functioning like a syringe, capable of differentiating blood types based on taste. The female mosquito's mouthparts are not simply a sting, but a highly advanced tool. It consists of 6 needles, each with a specific role. Some cut through the skin, others locate capillaries, another injects saliva, and the final one extracts blood. This entire process happens almost silently due to the proboscis tip's mobility. Equipped with microscopic teeth, it vibrates at up to 30 Hz, minimizing skin resistance. The most intriguing aspect is the saliva's chemical makeup. It comprises numerous substances: anticoagulants, pain relievers, and vasodilating enzymes. The saliva doesn't merely lubricate the bite, it facilitates the entire process. Upon locating a capillary, the mosquito begins to feed, simultaneously analyzing the blood's composition. Receptors within the proboscis detect glucose, iron, and hormone levels. If the blood's composition is undesirable, for instance, it's too thick or contains high concentrations of specific antibodies, the mosquito may stop feeding. Moreover, mosquitoes exhibit a preference for individuals with particular body odors, skin temperatures, and blood types. Individuals with type O blood are more attractive. This transforms the common mosquito from a mere insect into a biological device, accurate, sensitive, and, regrettably, quite persistent. The 32nd fact: Venus experiences metallic precipitation. The atmosphere of the second planet from the Sun is not merely dense, it's extreme. The pressure is 92 times that of Earth. The temperature surpasses 470 degrees Celsius. The atmosphere is composed of carbon dioxide, and the clouds consist of sulfuric acid. The most striking feature, however, is found in the upper atmosphere, the presence of rare earth metal vapors such as bismuth and gallium. Researchers at the Max Planck Institute hypothesize that at high altitudes, these elements evaporate from the surface, ascend as microscopic aerosols, and subsequently, upon cooling, condense and precipitate as a metallic haze or even droplets. This process differs from conventional rainfall, resembling instead the sedimentation of metal-rich dust. Supporting evidence comes from spectral analysis conducted using data from the Venus Express and Akatsuki orbital spacecraft. Characteristic peaks corresponding to heavy element compounds were identified. On the surface, these metals likely melt, creating mirror-like pools, similar to lead in Mercury. This accounts for Venus's exceptional brightness in the sky. The clouds and precipitation reflect substantial amounts of light. Therefore, each time one observes the evening star, they are witnessing a planet experiencing metallic rainfall. Intense brilliance, devoid of romance. 33rd fact. Ants are capable of building living bridges. Specific ant species, particularly Eciton burchelli found in South America, construct these bridges not from materials like twigs or soil, but from their own bodies. When a colony encounters an interruption in its path, a ditch, a fissure, a plant stem, the ants quickly link together, creating a chain. The initial ants secure themselves to the edge of the obstruction, followed by others until a living structure forms, enabling the passage of the rest. This isn't a haphazard pile. The ants regulate tension, thickness, and angle. If ant traffic increases, the bridge expands. If it lessens, some ants detach and rejoin the column. The bridge constantly reconfigures itself in real time without any central direction. Researchers at Princeton University, simulating this behavior, discovered that each ant decides its role in bridge construction based on pressure, the number of surrounding ants, and the rate of ant traffic. These localized algorithms collectively produce an optimal structure. This strategy inspires engineers in the development of robotic swarms and self-organizing architectural systems. Consider a system where each component is simple, yet the collective demonstrates remarkable efficiency. The ants are unaware they are building a bridge. Nevertheless, the bridge emerges and works. Fact 34. Bees have the ability to distinguish and remember human faces. Researchers at the Australian National University conducted an experiment where they trained bees to recognize human faces in photographs. Two images were presented. One positive, rewarded with a sugar solution, and one neutral. After repeated trials, the bees learned to select the positive image. Subsequently, the images were swapped, slightly altered, and noise was introduced. Yet, the bees continue to accurately identify the correct face. This demonstrates that their brain, composed of only 1 million neurons, can process complex visual information, extract key features, and establish long-term memory. Given that the human brain comprises approximately 86 billion neurons, this is remarkable. However, the crucial factor might not be size, but rather the organization of the brain. Bees employ a modular system. They possess neural units dedicated to processing orientation, color, and shape. A face to a bee is merely a combination of these characteristics. This aids them in their natural environment, distinguishing flowers, navigating, and recognizing fellow colony members. Critically, they retain this information. When a bee observes a human face, it doesn't simply perceive eyes and a nose. It recognizes them, and it might return to that familiar individual later. Number 35. The cuckoo doesn't merely deposit its eggs in other birds' nests, it meticulously fabricates them to achieve near-perfect mimicry. Female common cuckoos, Cuculus conoris, select the nest of a particular bird species, such as the reed warbler, and lay an egg virtually indistinguishable in shape and color from the host's eggs. Each female specializes in a single species, inheriting this specialization maternally. Genetic studies have revealed a specific mitochondrial lineage in cuckoos associated with this egg forgery. But the host birds are not defenseless. They have evolved the ability to detect even subtle variations in egg coloration and patterning. This has resulted in an evolutionary arms race. The more effective the cuckoo's camouflage, the more rigorously the reed warbler examines its eggs. Cambridge researchers, through egg substitution experiments, discovered that some birds reject eggs differing by just a few percentage points in color from the rest of the clutch. The cuckoo, however, possesses a significant advantage. Its egg develops at a faster rate than those of typical birds, within a single day. It rapidly enters the nest, removes one of the host's eggs, and replaces it with its own near-perfect replica. Consequently, the cuckoo chick, hatching prematurely, evicts its nestmates and thrives alone, consuming all the available food. This biological deception is so refined that it's often compared to clandestine operations in science, in speed, precision, and outcome. 36th fact. Microscopic mites belonging to the genus Demodex reside within human skin. They inhabit the sebaceous glands and hair follicles, predominantly on the face, specifically around the nose, forehead, and chin area. Nearly all adults carry these mites. These mites are imperceptible to the unaided eye, measuring approximately 100 microns in length. Their diet consists of sebum, and they move at a rate of several millimeters per hour, exhibiting increased activity during nighttime hours. For an extended period, they were believed to be harmless, and this generally holds true. They typically cause no symptoms in most individuals. Nevertheless, in the early 2000s, research emerged suggesting a potential correlation between an overabundance of Demodex and rosacea, a chronic inflammatory skin condition. It is noteworthy that these organisms possess virtually no independent immune system and are reliant on the health of their host skin. Furthermore, they lack an anal opening. Waste products accumulate within their bodies, and upon death, they essentially rupture within the follicle. The body usually manages this process effectively, but an imbalance can trigger inflammation. The paradox is that these worms coexist with us from birth and will likely remain with us until death. We are unaware of their presence, yet they contribute to the regulation of the skin's microflora as part of our individual ecosystem. Even when gazing into a mirror, your face represents more than just yourself. It is a complete, albeit invisible, civilization. Fact number 37. Penguins' ability to withstand temperatures as low as -40 degrees Celsius is due to their exceptional feather structure, which functions as a highly effective thermal insulator. Emperor penguins, known for their remarkable endurance, possess a feather density of 106,000 feathers per square meter, double that of a sparrow. However, the arrangement of these feathers is equally crucial. They overlap like roof tiles, forming a wind-proof barrier. Beneath this outer layer lies a second layer of short, soft feathers that retain air close to the body. This trapped air acts as the primary insulator, preventing significant heat loss. Consequently, a layer of air, akin to a blanket, is created between the penguin's skin and the frigid air. Furthermore, penguins can regulate blood flow to their extremities, minimizing heat loss. Their feet and beaks cool down to just above freezing, yet avoid freezing due to a unique heat exchange system in their paws. Arteries and veins run in close proximity, allowing warm blood from the body to heat the returning venous blood. Remarkably, a penguin standing on ice exhibits minimal heat loss. Thermal imaging studies conducted by researchers at the University of Sheffield revealed that a standing penguin loses less heat than a human wearing a warm jacket. This effect is amplified within a group. Penguins huddle together in a tight circle, sharing body heat. They slowly rotate to ensure equitable heat distribution, enabling them to survive the Antarctic night. Therefore, a penguin's plumage is not merely insulation, but a sophisticated life support system honed over millions of years of adaptation to extreme cold. 38. Your brain anticipates what you'll see, even before your eyes open. Studies initiated in the 2000s dramatically altered our comprehension of perception. The brain, it was discovered, doesn't merely respond to incoming stimuli, it proactively predicts them. Researchers at the University of Glasgow and the Leipzig Institute for Cognitive Sciences performed a series of experiments employing tomography. Participants viewed images containing noise, incomplete figures, or fragments of letters. The brain filled in the missing information prior to the eye fully registering the image. In a separate experiment, volunteers were briefly shown scenes, such as a kitchen or a street, while their brain activity was monitored. Results revealed increased activity in areas corresponding to anticipated objects, even in their absence. The brain anticipated a teapot in the kitchen and highlighted the relevant area. This is a predictive perceptual model. The brain generates a hypothesis and subsequently verifies it. This conserves resources, accelerates reaction time, and might explain illusions, where the prediction outweighs reality. Even during movement, such as turning one's head, the visual cortex activates beforehand, preparing the frame yet unseen. Consequently, vision isn't simply a camera, it's a sophisticated film studio with a robust script-writing department. And your experience isn't solely defined by what exists, but also by what your brain believes should exist. The 39th fact. The Hawaiian bobtail squid, Euprymna scolops, a nocturnal species, hosts the bacterium Vibrio fischeri within its light organ. This bacterium produces the squid's bioluminescence and controls its timing. The squid has a specialized light organ located on its underside where the bacteria live. The light produced by the bacteria illuminates the area beneath the squid. This illumination serves not for hunting, but for camouflage, concealing the squid's shadow from predators in the moonlight. The bacterium is not just a passive inhabitant, but an essential participant in this symbiotic relationship. Without the bacterium, the light organ fails to develop. The squid larva is born without the bacteria and is not bioluminescent. Only after acquiring Vibrio fischeri from the surrounding seawater does the light organ develop. At night, when the bacterial population reaches a sufficient density, bioluminescence begins, quorum sensing. The squid regulates this process, expelling up to 95% of the bacteria each morning. This daily gut cleaning allows for the renewal of the bacterial population. In the evening, the bacterial population increases again, restarting the bioluminescence. This is a symbiotic relationship where both organisms have evolved to maintain a daily rhythm, a biological lamp with a microbial light source controlled by the squid. The 40th fact. Time passes more quickly in an attic than in a cellar. This isn't a philosophical idea, but a scientifically measured reality. Gravity influences the passage of time. Einstein's general theory of relativity states that the closer an object is to a massive body, such as the Earth, the slower time progresses for that object. This is known as gravitational time dilation. In 2010, scientists at the National Institute of Standards and Technology in the United States performed an experiment using two extremely accurate atomic clocks positioned 30 centimeters apart vertically. The difference in time between them was a few billionths of a second per day, a consistent and predictable difference. This implies that an inhabitant of a 30th floor penthouse ages infinitesimally faster than their first-floor neighbor. The difference is minuscule, yet real. For global navigation satellite systems, GNSS, this effect is crucial. Their clocks drift by tens of microseconds, and without accounting for gravitational effects, GPS signals would be inaccurate by kilometers. Consequently, even within a single building, the passage of time isn't uniform. One floor higher means you're a billionth of a second closer to the future. It's imperceptible, but it's a working principle. Modern navigation systems, from mobile phones to spacecraft, depend on this subtle distortion of time. Fact number 41. The water molecules that make up your body could be older than the sun. This is not fiction, but a scientifically calculated fact. In 2014, astronomers at the University of Michigan presented a model explaining the origin of water within our solar system. Their findings indicated that a substantial amount of the H2O molecules present in the protoplanetary disk before Earth's formation originated in interstellar space, long before our Sun's creation. This implies that Earth's water is not a product of terrestrial processes, but rather a cosmic legacy delivered by asteroids and comets. Research has shown that the isotopic composition of water on Earth and in certain comets is nearly identical. The deuterium to hydrogen ratio in the molecules matches. This is crucial evidence. This isotopic signature points to a common origin, cold molecular clouds existing billions of years ago. In other words, the water we use for drinking, cooking, and which constitutes our bodies formed in interstellar dust. Some molecules may have journeyed across the galaxy before becoming part of our ocean. Therefore, we are not merely drinking water, we are consuming remnants of ancient cosmic clouds that survive stellar explosions and planetary formation. Each sip contains a tiny piece of the cosmos. Fact number 42. A cucumber demonstrates a capacity for directed growth. It does not merely gravitate towards light. Rather, it establishes a growth trajectory based on factors such as available support, moisture levels, neighboring plants, and the angle of light incidence. Researchers at Tokyo University released a high-resolution video in 2022 illustrating how cucumber seedlings analyze their surroundings in real time. Their tendrils are highly sensitive and possess almost intelligent capabilities. Upon contact with an object, they can determine its diameter, texture, and hardness. Should the support prove inadequate, the plant releases its hold and seeks an alternative. Moreover, the growth direction is adjusted based on information received through phototropism and hydrotropism. The stem grows towards softer, non-intense light and areas of higher humidity. The plant functions as an autonomous navigation system, continuously adjusting its course. Biologists attribute this behavior to the absence of neurons, highlighting the intricate sequences of hormonal and ionic reactions that effectively simulate decision-making processes. The presence of a neighboring seedling prompts the cucumber to alter its growth direction to avoid competition. Certain varieties can even differentiate between self and other roots via chemical signals. Therefore, the plant does not simply exist. It actively chooses its developmental path. Lacking eyes, ears, and a brain, it nevertheless possesses inherent algorithms that necessitate a reevaluation of the concept of instinct. The cucumber exhibits a more sophisticated strategy than previously assumed. Fact number 43. Spider silk surpasses steel in strength and acts as a highly sensitive sensor. The silk thread produced by a spider is composed of proteins with a unique structure, combining lightness, flexibility, and exceptional strength. Massachusetts Institute of Technology studies indicate that spider silk is 5 times stronger than steel of equivalent mass and can stretch 20 to 30% without rupturing. A single gram of spider silk can extend for several kilometers. However, the web's uniqueness extends beyond its physical properties. It also serves as a sensory organ. Each thread is connected to the spider's legs, and vibrations are transmitted with such accuracy that the spider can differentiate between wind, a fallen leaf, a competitor, or prey. Furthermore, the spider can adjust the tension of the threads, thereby regulating the web's sensitivity. In the early 2000s, Oxford biophysicists conducted an experiment. They attached microscopic sensors to various sections of the web and reproduced vibrations of varying frequencies. Spiders could distinguish differences as small as 1 Hz, a level of auditory acuity found in mammals. Therefore, the silk thread functions as both a musical instrument and an echolocation system. Scientists are currently developing synthetic spider silk for future applications, including bulletproof vests, surgical sutures, and smart sensors. This innovation is inspired by an 8-legged creature and its intricate internet predating the digital age. Fact number 44. Certain tree types retain memories of past droughts for extended periods. Oaks, pines, and redwood trees demonstrate epigenetic memory. Extreme conditions such as drought, fire, or intense cold trigger cellular changes that don't alter DNA but affect gene expression. This process is known as methylation. Specific chemical tags activate or deactivate sections of the genome. In the early 2000s, researchers at the University of Zurich analyzed tree ring growth patterns and discovered a remarkable trend. Following periods of hardship, even during favorable conditions, trees exhibit cautious behavior, slow growth, increased water retention, and denser wood formation. These adaptations persist for decades. Furthermore, offspring grown from seeds of these trees inherit some of these characteristics. Therefore, this memory is not only individual but also transgenerational. This represents a survival strategy. A tree surviving a catastrophe has learned caution and passed this knowledge to its progeny. Given climate change, this phenomenon has become a focus of scientific inquiry. How forests adapt to extreme weather not through mutations but through memory. Consequently, trees not only grow but also remember. Their trunks contain not merely age rings but a record of past events. And even if the forest appears silent, it remembers when the sky burned. Number 45, fact. Cats purr not only out of contentment, but also as a form of self-treatment. Domestic cats produce purring sounds within a frequency range of 25 to 100 Hz. Physiotherapists have observed that this frequency range yields the most significant regenerative effects on bones, muscles, and tendons. Studies by the American Institute of Health indicate that low-frequency vibrations in this range accelerate bone mending, increase tissue density, and even alleviate inflammation. It's noteworthy that cats purr not only when relaxed, but also when sick, injured, or under stress. Thus, purring serves not merely as an emotional expression, but as a self-healing mechanism. Remarkably, this characteristic extends to wild cats like cheetahs and pumas, which also purr at similar frequencies. Veterinarians have long observed that cats recover from fractures more quickly than other animals of similar size. Some zoologists hypothesize that purring is an evolutionary advantage for solitary predators, enabling self-treatment without reliance on a group. There's even a theory suggesting that close interaction with a cat may positively impact human health. Experiments with individuals experiencing hypertension and anxiety showed that regular exposure to purring lowered cortisol levels. Purring isn't simply a sound, it's a physiological function, and possibly one of the most ancient self-repair methods among mammals. Fact number 46. Salvador Dalí did not fabricate the imagery of melting clocks. He experienced them during microsleep. Microsleep, or microscopic brain disconnections, are brief instances where sections of the brain enter a sleep state for mere fractions of a second, even while the individual remains awake. This typically occurs due to insufficient sleep or prolonged monotonous focus. In 2012, neurophysiologists at the Frankfurt Institute for Brain Research conducted a study involving brain scans of individuals performing repetitive tasks. They observed that specific brain regions transitioned into delta activity, characteristic of sleep, while the subjects remained conscious. These episodes lasted only 100 to 200 milliseconds. However, during these moments, consciousness is diminished and the brain produces dream imagery. This explains why, upon falling asleep, we might perceive something as having fallen, moved, or altered. Salvador Dalí, according to his own account, employed the key method. He would fall asleep holding a heavy bunch of keys above a metal tray. Upon the onset of sleep, his grip would relax, the keys would fall, and he would awaken, retaining the frozen image from his dream. It is probable that this is how he saw the flowing forms, distorted objects, and unusual perspectives. Currently, similar techniques are utilized in creative workshops. Individuals are taught to harness microsleep as a source of inspiration. Consequently, surrealism is not always invention. Sometimes it is simply a momentary brain function. 47th fact. The woodpecker's brain remains unharmed despite the bird's habit of pecking wood with an acceleration 1,000 times greater than the force of gravity. The impact force on the woodpecker reaches 1,000 Gs, while humans lose consciousness at only 50 Gs. How is this possible? In 2011, researchers at Peking University employed high-speed videography and microtomography to uncover the woodpecker's penatomical secrets. Firstly, the woodpecker's skull possesses an asymmetrical structure, effectively dispersing the impact energy into the bones rather than the brain. Secondly, there is a negligible amount of cerebrospinal fluid between the skull and brain. This fluid acts as a cushion in other animals, but in the woodpecker, it would likely exacerbate the impact. Thirdly, the woodpecker's tongue wraps around its skull, extending behind the occiput to form an elastic ring functioning as a safety harness. The woodpecker's small brain is densely packed and encased in porous bone, further mitigating concussion risk. Furthermore, the impacts are extremely brief, less than a millisecond, and are precisely aligned with the body's axis, minimizing displacement. Inspired by the woodpecker skull structure, engineers have designed improved concussion protection systems for helmets and car seats. The bird's ability to withstand millions of impacts throughout its life without injury has proven invaluable to the field of biomechanics. Each tuck-tuck represents a marvel of physics that any boxer would admire. Fact number 48. A single fungus can occupy an area spanning tens of hectares while remaining a single organism. In the Blue Mountains of Oregon, USA, the Armillaria ostiae fungus, also known as the dark honey fungus, thrives. Its visible parts are the small mushrooms seen on the surface. However, beneath the ground lies a vast mycelium network exceeding 80 hectares in area. This constitutes the largest known living organism on Earth in terms of area covered. Its age is estimated to be between 2,500 and 4,000 years. The mycelium expands slowly but consistently, encompassing tree roots and absorbing organic matter from the soil. It has the capacity to kill trees, converting them into nutrients, while simultaneously providing a favorable environment for other plants. Researchers at the U.S. Forest Pathology Laboratory confirmed its single organism status through genomic analysis. Samples from various forest locations were genetically identical. Essentially, the forest frequented by tourists represents the fruiting body of this immense hidden organism. Furthermore, the fungus functions as a network. If a tree begins to die, signals propagate through the mycelium, leading to a redistribution of metabolic activity. Some researchers refer to the mycelium as a forest internet, a system where information, nutrients, and decisions flow seamlessly. Consequently, each mushroom encountered might represent not a beginning, but an end. The rest remains concealed by the earth and the passage of time. Fact number 49. The human skin can determine the time of day, independently of vision and brain function. The human body contains master biological clocks situated in the suprachiasmatic nucleus of the hypothalamus, a cluster of neurons responsible for circadian rhythms. But in 2005, researchers at Harvard Medical School found that almost every cell in the body, including skin cells, possesses its own internal clock. These are molecular chains of PER, clock, and BMAL proteins, which are created and broken down according to daily cycles. In the skin, these proteins regulate cell division, epidermal renewal, sebum production, and ultraviolet light sensitivity. For example, several hours before waking, the skin starts producing protective enzymes more actively, anticipating sunlight exposure. And at night, it transitions to a recovery mode, speeding up regeneration. Even with complete light isolation, these rhythms remain, with only minor shifts. However, if skin samples are taken from different locations, for instance the forearm and cheek, and cultured separately in a laboratory, each sample will operate according to its own internal time. Consequently, the organism is a complex system where each component functions autonomously following its own internal rhythm. Even without external cues, cells continue to adhere to their internal biological clocks. The 50th fact. On Saturn, a hexagonal hurricane exists. For 40 years, scientists have been studying a peculiar atmospheric phenomenon at Saturn's North Pole, a massive storm with the shape of an almost perfect hexagon. Voyager 1 first imaged it in 1981, a finding later confirmed by the Cassini probe in the early 2000 years. Each side of this hexagon measures approximately 4,000 kilometers. The entire structure rotates in sync with the planet's atmosphere and retains its shape for decades. Why this geometric form? On Earth, storms are always circular, cyclones and anticyclones. However, Saturn possesses a dense atmosphere, powerful jet streams, and a very rapid rotation. Laboratory experiments with rotating cylinders and liquids have demonstrated that under specific conditions, a vortex can indeed stabilize into a hexagonal shape. But this Saturnian hurricane is more than just a mathematical anomaly. Within it are vortices reaching speeds of up to 400 kilometers per hour, temperatures lower than in other planetary regions, and even its own eye, a funnel resembling a terrestrial typhoon. It's not merely a storm, it's a colossal atmospheric system operating with remarkable precision, governed by laws not yet fully comprehended. And possibly, within this hexagon lies the key to understanding the formation of stable structures within chaos. Fact number 51. Your skeletal system undergoes complete renewal every 10 years, a process imperceptible to you. We perceive bone tissue as rigid and unchanging, yet it is one of the body's most dynamic components. Two simultaneous processes are constantly at work. Osteoclasts break down old bone, while osteoblasts construct new bone. This cyclical process is known as remodeling. Within approximately a decade, the entire bone mass in your body is completely replaced, unnoticeably but consistently. This renewal is most pronounced in areas subjected to significant stress: the pelvis, femurs, and spine. Furthermore, bones possess a remarkable ability to adapt to sustained pressure. Prolonged pressure in a specific direction results in structural remodeling to enhance strength. This is Wolff's Law, established in the 19th century and corroborated by advanced imaging techniques in the 21st. Interestingly, even teeth exhibit partial adherence to this principle. The bones surrounding the tooth root can alter its shape in response to bite patterns. Bone tissue responds not only to physical forces, but also to biochemical factors: hormone levels, vitamin D, and calcium. In women, for instance, post-menopause, bone resorption may significantly outpace bone formation, leading to osteoporosis. However, even then, the body persists in its efforts to build, strengthen, and maintain equilibrium. Consequently, the skeleton you possess is not the same one you were born with. It is in constant flux. And you simply continue to live. Number 52 fact. A river in the Amazon basin boils. This is not a legend, but a reality. In the Peruvian jungle, the Chennai-Timpishka River flows, reaching a temperature of 91 degrees Celsius. Its high temperature is unrelated to volcanic activity. There are no active volcanoes in the area. This phenomenon baffled scientists for a considerable time. Only in 2015 did geophysicist Andre Russo publish research explaining this phenomenon. Hot water originates from geothermal sources. Rainwater seeps deep underground, heats up, and, under pressure, resurfaces, filling the riverbed. The riverbed consists of clay and mineralized rock, maintaining the high temperature. The river, up to 25 meters wide and 2 meters deep, is lethal to all living things that enter it. Boiling is not continuous, but in certain areas, the water does reach boiling point. Local people consider the river sacred, referring to it as the river that kills without blood. Unique flora thrives on its banks, adapted to the extreme humidity and temperature. This jungle area serves as a natural laboratory: constant heat, evaporation, and water vapor. Scientists are studying the surviving bacteria, potentially useful in developing heat-resistant enzymes for medical applications. The boiling river is not fantasy. The Amazon continues to amaze. 53rd fact. Stars are capable of producing sound. Stellar seismology, a relatively new branch of astrophysics, studies the internal vibrations of stars. Similar to how the study of earthquakes helps scientists understand the Earth's internal structure, starquakes provide insights into the internal structure of stars. These oscillations were first detected on the Sun. Sound waves originating from its surface reflect off its inner layers, creating standing waves. Specialized spectrometers allowed scientists to determine the frequencies of these waves. They fall within the millihertz to hertz range, corresponding to very low frequencies inaudible to the human ear, but convertible into an audio format. The Kepler spacecraft detected similar vibrations in distant stars. Each star possesses a unique sonic signature. Furthermore, the characteristics of these sounds are determined by the star's mass, density, age, and chemical composition. A catalog of stellar sounds containing the acoustic profiles of various celestial bodies has been created. This is not just an interesting fact. A star's sonic fingerprint allows for precise determination of its diameter, age, and evolutionary stage. Therefore, the universe is not a silent void, but a complex soundscape where each star plays its vibrating part. With super-sensitive hearing, we would perceive the hum of galaxies as the sound of bells. Item 54. Human body cells emit light when subjected to stress, literally. Research into photon emission, undertaken at Kyoto University, Japan, demonstrates that living cells release a weak bioluminescent light under specific physiological conditions. This luminescence is most pronounced during oxidative stress, a rapid increase in reactive oxygen species within the cell. This resembles a brief internal flicker. Scientists employing highly sensitive photomultipliers have successfully recorded these flashes, lasting milliseconds and imperceptible to the unaided eye, yet measurable. The intensity of this light emission increases, for instance, during intense emotional experiences, inflammation, and physical depletion. Furthermore, the luminescence varies across different organs. The brain, liver, and skin exhibit distinct emission patterns. These findings are currently utilized in antioxidant activity tests. Stress-reducing substances diminish the intensity of the glow. However, there's also a poetic aspect. Light, though faint and unseen, truly resides within us. Every irritation, every pain, every healing process leaves its mark not only on memory, but also on the body's photonic signature. Therefore, a human being is, in essence, more than just biochemistry and electricity. It is also light, its own subtle yet genuine light. Number 55, fact. Certain turtle species utilize a unique respiratory method, cloacal breathing. This adaptation, known as cloacal respiration, is observed in freshwater turtles, for example, the Australian ornate turtle, Rheodites leucops. During periods of drought or underwater hibernation, these turtles seldom surface for air. Instead, they employ their cloaca, the common opening for the digestive, excretory, and reproductive systems, as a supplementary respiratory organ. Within its walls are minute blood vessels that absorb oxygen dissolved in the water, similar to gills. This allows the turtle to breathe underwater for weeks, remaining largely immobile. In the early 2000s, scientists at the University of Queensland documented that up to 70% of a turtle's oxygen requirements are fulfilled via cloacal respiration while submerged. The mechanism is surprisingly efficient. The lower the turtle's activity level, the greater the efficiency of this posterior respiration. This physiological mechanism provides a survival advantage in extreme environments lacking air access but possessing warm water. Evolution embraces effective solutions regardless of their unconventional nature. Nature clearly demonstrates no limitations on respiratory methods. 56th fact. The chameleon's tongue is incredibly fast. Its ejection speed exceeds 200 times its body length per second. This means a 30-centimeter tongue travels 30 centimeters in 1/100th of a second. Scaled to human proportions, this would be equivalent to a tongue reaching 1.5 meters in an instant. The chameleon's tongue mechanism is not simply a muscle. It's a sophisticated biomechanical system, a muscular tube with an elastic collagen band that stores and then rapidly releases energy. Once a target is detected, this energy is released, propelling the tongue forward to capture prey with its adhesive tip before retracting. Microscopic examination reveals that the tongue tip is covered in microscopic hairs, ensuring adhesion even to smooth surfaces. In a forest habitat, this guarantees successful hunting on the first attempt, as a second chance may not be available. Furthermore, chameleons adjust the force of the tongue's projection according to prey size. A gentle push for a small fly, a stronger strike for a larger beetle. Therefore, it's not just a catapult, but a regulated mechanism. In a world governed by millimeters and milliseconds, the chameleon's victory is achieved not by its teeth, but by its tongue's speed and precision. Item 57. Antarctica features a remarkable geological formation known as the Blood Waterfall. Its coloration is not related to blood. This singular natural phenomenon is situated within the Taylor Glacier in the Dry Valleys region. A flow of intensely red water emanates from the glacier's ice wall, imparting a blood-red tint to the surrounding snow and ice. Upon its initial discovery in 1905, the red hue was attributed to algae. Subsequent scientific investigation, however, revealed that the coloration is caused by iron. The water issuing from the glacier is rich in iron-bearing salts. Underlying the ice lies an ancient subglacial lake isolated from the external environment for more than 1,000,000 years. It is devoid of oxygen, light, and virtually all life forms except for microorganisms adapted to extreme conditions. Upon exposure to air, the iron oxidizes, forming iron oxide, rust, which accounts for the water's red color. Analysis indicates that the subglacial ecosystem utilizes sulfates and iron as energy sources, mirroring processes observed at hydrothermal vents on the ocean floor. This represents one of the most extreme environments on Earth where microbial life has been confirmed. Moreover, the blood waterfall serves as a model for the search for extraterrestrial life. The viability of life without light and oxygen under permafrost suggests the possibility of similar conditions on Mars or beneath the icy surface of Europa, a moon of Jupiter. The crimson water in the white expanse is not merely a striking visual phenomenon, but a significant scientific indicator. Entry 58. Dolphins possess individual names and use them in communication. In the year 2013, a research group of marine biologists from the University of St. Andrews observed bottlenose dolphins, the most intelligent dolphin species, and found that each dolphin has a unique whistle, a distinctive sound pattern not replicated by any other dolphin in the group. This whistle develops in youth and remains consistent throughout life. Crucially, other dolphins utilize this whistle to address a specific dolphin. This is not mere echoing or imitation, but a deliberate use of a name. Experiments involving playback of recorded whistles showed that dolphins responded only to their own whistle, largely ignoring others. Furthermore, separated dolphins at a distance increased their use of name-calling. This finding provides strong evidence for self-awareness in mammals beyond humans. A name is not simply a label, but a component of the self. Dolphins possess this. Instances were observed where dolphins used other dolphins' names, possibly for attention, warning, or even mimicking. Dolphin communication, or marine acoustics, is a complex system where names are not shouted but sung. This song reflects intelligence, communication, and possibly the nascent stages of culture. 59th fact. In Africa, there is a lake that can kill all living things around it in a single night. This is Lake Nice in Cameroon, one of the few lakes in the world where a limnological eruption can occur. The lake water looks normal, but deep down there is a huge reservoir of carbon dioxide that has been building up for decades. The gas originates from geothermal sources beneath the lake and dissolves in the water under high pressure. While the water is still, the gas remains submerged. However, an earthquake, a landslide, or heavy rain can mix the water, reducing the pressure and causing the carbon dioxide to be released suddenly. This happened on the night of August 21, 1986. Lake Nice unexpectedly released a large volume of carbon dioxide gas. More than 1,000,000 cubic meters of carbon dioxide gas erupted, descending into the valley and displacing the oxygen. Within minutes, over 1,700 people and approximately 3,000 animals died. People simply fell asleep and didn't wake up. Survivors reported waking up feeling heavy and suffocating and seeing the air lying like a fog on the ground. Special degassing pipes have been installed on the lake to slowly release the gas. Similar lakes exist elsewhere, and predicting their behavior remains impossible. This is a rare but alarming reminder that water isn't always life-giving. Sometimes it is a deadly trap. 61st fact. The human brain can generate colors that don't actually exist. This is a phenomenon known as invisible colors or impossible colors. Colors not found in the visible spectrum, yet perceivable under specific circumstances. Yellow-blue is one such example. Normally, the eye's receptors can't simultaneously transmit signals for both yellow and blue to the brain due to antagonistic excitation. But in the 90s, Yale University researchers conducted an experiment. Using stabilized images and precise focus, they manipulated participants' vision to see both colors at once. The brain, receiving this impossible input, produced a novel color. Participants described it as a color beyond the palette, deep, elusive, unlike anything familiar. Some couldn't recall it afterward, as if the brain erased this impossible data. This proves color perception isn't simply physics, but interpretation. The retina signals, and the brain decides how to interpret that signal. This explains illusions like non-existent green squares or pink dots vanishing upon focus. Color isn't objective reality, but the brain's subjective interpretation of what it sees. Consequently, we each possess a unique color palette unreproducible by any computer. Only we can create it, only in the moment of seeing. Fact 61st. The anatomy of a squid's eyes is remarkable. The deep-sea squid, Histiothithis, also called the cockeyed squid, possesses two eyes that differ significantly in size and shape. One eye is large, round, and directed upwards. The other is small, tubular, and points laterally and downwards. This is not an anomaly, but a highly effective adaptation. Researchers at Duke University in 2010 determined that the large eye detects light reflected from the surface, particularly bioluminescence from other creatures. The smaller eye is adapted to perceive the weak light at depth. The optical mechanisms of the two eyes are distinct. One functions like a telescope, the other like a wide aperture camera. This unique visual arrangement enables the squid to simultaneously hunt below and observe potential predators above. Furthermore, each eye is linked to a separate visual center in the brain, processing visual information independently before integrating the images. This is analogous to a human having one eye that sees in infrared and the other in ultraviolet. This anatomical feature evolved due to the extreme conditions at depths exceeding 800 meters, where light is scarce and survival depends on superior vision. Consequently, the squid observes two environments concurrently without interruption. 60-second fact. Gorillas exhibit a sense of humor in the literal sense. Primate researchers at the Leipzig Institute for Evolutionary Anthropology have conducted long-term observations of young gorillas and chimpanzees, documenting behaviors similar to human playful teasing. The gorillas would crouch, conceal themselves, simulate attacks, but at the last moment change direction, producing unique short sounds unlike those associated with fear or aggression. These laughter-like vocalizations varied in rhythm and intensity, but always occurred within the context of social interaction. Moreover, upon the arrival of a new infant, adults might playfully tease it by initiating mock conflicts that unexpectedly transitioned into games. In one documented case, a zoo gorilla deliberately threw grass at a keeper, hid, and then peered out to observe the reaction. This action became a daily ritual through repetition. This suggests a capacity for social play, deviation from established behavioral patterns, and interpretation of another's response, essential elements of humor. It's possible that laughter serves not only as a response to amusement, but also as a means of strengthening social ties. In humans, it evolved into a cultural phenomenon, while in primates it remains a natural expression, seen in a blade of grass, a movement, and a cunning glance from behind cover. Fact number 63. All of your body was once stardust, and some parts remain radioactive. The components of the human body, carbon, oxygen, hydrogen, nitrogen, iron, and calcium, all originated within stars. Lighter elements were synthesized in the cores of stars similar to the sun, while heavier elements formed during supernova explosions. The immense energy released in these processes was essential for the creation of elements such as iron and iodine, requiring temperatures only achievable during the catastrophic collapse of giant stars. Therefore, every atom in your body has experienced the cycle of a star's birth, life, and death. Remarkably, some of these atoms remain unstable. The human body contains potassium-40, a radioactive isotope that undergoes spontaneous decay, emitting beta particles. Consequently, each person continuously emits approximately 400 nanowatts of radiation. This poses no danger, but is readily measurable. You are a weak yet constant source of radiation. A detector in a sealed room would register minute flashes if you spent a night there. We are living embodiments of nuclear fusion, manifested in water, carbon, and electricity. When we gaze at the sky, we are observing not only the universe's past, but also our own chemical origins, the beginning of everything. Fact number 64. The human ear has a unique characteristic. It produces sounds in addition to receiving them. This is not figurative language. It's a verifiable physiological process. The organ of hearing doesn't just passively detect sounds, it actively generates them. This phenomenon is known as otoacoustic emission, a discovery made by British physicist David Kemp in 1978. He observed that the ear can release subtle sound waves into the ear canal. This is caused by microscopic movements of the outer hair cells within the inner ear, which vibrate both in reaction to external sounds and spontaneously. These vibrations are detectable with sensitive microphones inserted into the ear canal. This technology is used, for instance, in newborn hearing screenings. A response indicates proper ear function. Remarkably, some of these emissions occur independently of external stimuli. The ear essentially sings on its own. The underlying reasons remain unclear. Hypotheses suggest this might be a form of internal sensitivity adjustment, a type of calibration, or a vestigial function related to echolocation. Regardless, auditory perception is not a passive process. The ear actively engages in a continuous interaction with its environment, acting as both a receiver and a source of sound. Therefore, silence isn't the complete absence of sound. It's the backdrop against which our auditory experience unfolds. Fact 65. Snowflakes are distinctive not only for their unique shapes, but also for the sounds they make as they fall. In the year 2021, researchers at the University of Illinois performed experiments using highly sensitive microphones in a completely still and quiet environment to record the sounds of landing snowflakes. It was discovered that the type of snowflake affects its acoustic signature. Denser, multifaceted crystals produce a sharper click, whereas larger, fluffy snowflakes generate a soft, almost imperceptible whisper. These minute sounds combine to create the overall acoustic profile of a snowfall. This is what generates the sensation of winter quiet, even though it's not true silence, but rather a delicate layer of crystalline sounds. The researchers determined that snow absorbs high frequencies. This explains why winter streets sound quieter. A layer of fresh snow only 10 centimeters deep can reduce reflected noise by 30 to 40%. This property is lost when the snow melts. Wet snow doesn't muffle sound as effectively. Consequently, every snowfall is not just a visual spectacle, but also an auditory experience, perceptible only to those who are attentive. A blizzard, therefore, includes not only wind and cold, but also a complex soundscape created by millions of hexagonal crystals descending from the heavens. 66th fact. The blue color of lobster blood is not a quirk of nature, but an adaptation for survival. Unlike humans and most vertebrates, who utilize iron-containing hemoglobin for oxygen transport, lobsters, crabs, and other crustaceans employ a different mechanism. Their respiratory pigment, hemocyanin, contains copper instead of iron. This copper, when oxidized, imparts the characteristic blue color to their blood. The reason for the use of copper lies in its superior efficiency in binding oxygen molecules in cold, oxygen-poor water. This is particularly crucial for lobsters inhabiting the ocean floor, where oxygen levels can be very low. Furthermore, unlike in humans, hemocyanin isn't contained within cells, but circulates freely within the hemolymph, a fluid serving as both blood and lymph. However, blue blood is not merely a biological curiosity, it holds significant medical importance. The blood of horseshoe crabs, close relatives of lobsters, possesses the unique ability to clot in the presence of toxins. This property is exploited for sterility testing of vaccines and pharmaceuticals. Essentially, all injectable medications undergo this testing process. Thus, a biochemical process originating on the ocean floor has become integral to global healthcare. Every vaccination, therefore, contains, in a sense, a drop of the ancient ocean. Fact 67th. Fungi communicate via electrical impulses. In 2022, researcher Andrew Adamotsky of the University of the West of England conducted a study. He attached electrodes to the mycelium of 4 different fungal species and detected activity similar to nerve impulses. The frequency, length, and pattern of these signals were not random. They varied according to damage, interaction with other organisms, and humidity levels. Some signal sequences reached a length of 50 impulses and resembled in their complexity the simplest linguistic structures. The study demonstrated that fungi can transmit information across their underground network, the mycelium, which connects trees, plants, and soil organisms. This isn't speech as we typically understand it, but a form of communication based on data transmission. Signals such as danger, food nearby, location. This electrochemical transmission is intermediate between a neural network and a data cable. Therefore, fungi are not passive organisms, but active participants in the ecosystem, possessing their own communication method. While their signals can't be deciphered as a literary work, they undeniably exist, simply at frequencies we haven't yet learned to perceive. Fact number 68. Bone tissue responds to sound waves. This is confirmed by biomechanical studies. Researchers at the University of Southern California performed experiments exposing osteoblasts, cells responsible for bone formation, to sound waves of varying frequencies. The findings revealed that at approximately 50 Hz, cell division accelerated, and the production of proteins involved in bone mineralization increased by nearly 20%. At the cellular level, sound generates micro-vibrations, altering the cytoskeleton structure and initiating a chain of chemical reactions. This effect is particularly pronounced in low-gravity environments, such as space, where bone density diminishes. In collaborative research with the European Space Agency, sound stimulation was employed to maintain bone metabolism in astronauts. Additionally, vibration therapy is undergoing testing as a rehabilitation method for fractures and osteoporosis. Therefore, the skeleton serves not only as structural support, but also as a receptor sensitive to sound. Consequently, when listening to music, your body may respond not only through movement, but also through internal processes promoting bone growth. Fact 69. Research conducted by ecologists at the University of Freiburg on beech trees in Central Europe reveals that trees possess a remarkable ability to remember past droughts and modify their responses to future drought events. Trees that survived a severe drought exhibited changes in their behavior in following years. These changes included earlier leaf shedding, restricted shoot growth, and decreased transpiration through stomata, the tiny pores on leaves. This adaptive response is reminiscent of learned behavior. The mechanism underlying this phenomenon is epigenetic. Environmental stress triggers chemical modifications in the plant's DNA, which do not change the genetic sequence but influence gene expression. During subsequent droughts, these genes are activated more rapidly. Moreover, some of these epigenetic modifications are inherited by the next generation via seeds. Thus, the memory of drought is encoded in the plant's molecular structure, not a central nervous system. This discovery has practical applications in reforestation efforts. Seedlings from drought-resistant trees demonstrate enhanced resilience to changing climatic conditions. Despite lacking a nervous system, trees exhibit adaptive responses consistent with an organism capable of learning and adapting. Therefore, a forest is not simply a collection of trees, but a complex ecosystem that archives past events, with each crown representing a record of past storms. The 70th fact. Bees possess the ability to count and even comprehend the concept of zero. In 2018, researchers at RMIT University in Australia performed experiments training bees to differentiate the quantity of objects depicted in images. The bees successfully selected images with fewer elements, consistently applying their previous experiences. In the experiment's final phase, the bees were presented with a blank card and a card displaying a single object. The bees consistently chose the blank card, indicating an understanding that nothing is less than one. The researchers interpret this as evidence of comprehension of the concept of zero, a rare cognitive ability, even among mammals. Prior to this discovery, only humans, dolphins, gray parrots, and monkeys were known to possess this ability. Furthermore, the bees applied the less is more principle to novel situations, ruling out simple memorization. This suggests the presence of abstract thought in a creature with a brain the size of a poppy seed. Biologists believe bee intelligence is emergent, arising from a simple yet complex neural architecture. This implies that intelligence doesn't necessitate billions of neurons. A correct structure and a drop of nectar as a reward suffice. Fact number 71. Sharks possess the remarkable ability to detect electrical fields at distances of several tens of centimeters. Located beneath their skin, primarily on their snouts, are the ampullae of Lorenzini, unique sensory organs filled with a gelatinous substance. These ampullae are connected to the outside world via pores and are capable of registering extremely weak electrical signals. Even a fish concealed within the sand generates minuscule bioelectric currents detectable by a shark from as far as half a meter away. This exceptional sensitivity allows the shark to pinpoint the direction of the electric current by measuring the potential difference between its ampullae. At close range, a shark can even discern the heartbeat of its prey. Research indicates that the sensitivity threshold is approximately 5 billionths of a volt per centimeter, comparable to a human hearing an ant's footsteps from across a street. For sharks inhabiting dark or turbid waters, electroreception is crucial as vision and olfaction are severely limited. Furthermore, certain species utilize this ability not only for hunting, but also for navigation, using the stable electromagnetic fields generated by ocean currents as navigational aids. Therefore, a shark relies not solely on the scent of blood, but also on imperceptible electrical currents, effectively utilizing them as an invisible map. The ocean, in this context, is not merely a dark expanse, but a complex network of signals transmitted through the water. 72nd fact: the human brain possesses the remarkable ability to identify faces, even within random, unstructured patterns. This phenomenon is known as pareidolia, the inclination to perceive meaningful shapes in chaotic arrangements. Examples include a cloud resembling a rabbit, an electrical outlet appearing to gaze at the observer, or a wall stain resembling a smiling face. These perceptions are attributed to the activity of the temporal cortex, specifically the fusiform gyrus. This area specializes in facial recognition and is activated even when encountering imagined faces. Functional magnetic resonance imaging, fMRI studies, have demonstrated that during pareidolia, the brain engages the same regions as when processing actual faces. Furthermore, pareidolic images trigger emotional responses. An individual might feel observed despite recognizing the image as merely a shadow. This is believed to be an evolutionary adaptation. It is safer to misidentify a stain as an enemy numerous times than to fail to detect a real threat once. Pareidolia is notably more pronounced in darkness, during tiredness, or states of anxiety. Artists and designers strategically utilize this phenomenon to generate living forms and enhance imaginative engagement. In essence, a face is not simply what is visually perceived, but rather what the brain interprets and presents to our consciousness. Sometimes, the brain even generates these images itself to mitigate feelings of loneliness. 73. Blindness doesn't preclude visual perception. A technology exists that allows the blind to see using their tongues. This is not figurative language, but a description of a functional device. The BrainPort, developed at the University of Wisconsin in the early 2000s, utilizes a miniature camera mounted on glasses and a sensory module placed on the tongue.
The camera transmits images to an electrode array on the module, which stimulates the tongue with micro vibrations and impulses. These signals encode contours, shapes, and movement. The brain, processing this input, learns to interpret it visually. Participants reported sensations described as feeling a drawing on the tongue, and after weeks of use could distinguish shapes, recognize doors, letters, and even faces. Functional brain imaging confirmed activation of visual areas despite the lack of visual input from the eyes. This demonstrates neuroplasticity, the brain's ability to reassign functions and adapt perception. The device is especially effective for those who lost their sight later in life, as their brains retain a memory of visual perception. However, even those born blind adapt and learn to perceive the world through this novel sensory input. This challenges our understanding of perception. Seeing is not limited to optical input. It's about interpreting signals, even those received through taste receptors.
Fact number 74. In Africa, certain plants utilize scent to attract ants for defensive purposes. A prime example is the Vachellia drepenalobium acacia, prevalent in Kenyan savannas. Its branches feature hollow thorns, providing habitat for crematogaster ants. The acacia produces a unique nectar at the leaf base, not for pollination, but as compensation for protection. When an animal, such as a giraffe, begins feeding on its leaves, the acacia releases volatile organic compounds within seconds, a signal to the ants. Upon detecting this alarm scent, the ants emerge and aggressively attack the herbivore. While a single ant bite is insignificant, hundreds of bites quickly deter the animal. Furthermore, neighboring acacias also perceive this scent and activate their defenses. This interaction is not merely symbiosis, but a sophisticated signaling system. The plant identifies the threat, transmits a signal, summons reinforcements, and disseminates a warning. The acacia and ants share an extremely close relationship. Without each other, they struggle to survive. The acacia succumbs to herbivores without protection, and the ants lack shelter and sustenance. Similar mutualistic relationships exist in other plants, such as cotton plants attracting wasps to control caterpillars. Nature, therefore, possesses its own security system, employing chemical communication, protective agents, and reciprocal benefits. In this ecological drama, each participant's role is clearly defined. Fact number 75. At a depth of 2,000 meters under the Antarctic ice, life has been discovered that has been deprived of sunlight for millions of years. During the year 2021, a British Antarctic expedition, while installing seismometers on the Filchner-Ronne ice shelf, undertook ice drilling. Upon reaching the dark subglacial rock, the scientists lowered a video probe and observed stationary organisms on the rock's surface. These appeared to be sponges and other, as yet unidentified, filter-feeding organisms. This finding has astounded the scientific community. It was previously assumed that at such depths, without sunlight and nutrient input, only bacterial life could exist. However, these organisms were multicellular and, significantly, alive. The primary question remains, what is their energy source? It is most probable that it comes from slowly settling organic particles transported by underwater currents, possibly from hundreds of kilometers away. This indicates that even in the most remote locations on Earth, ecosystems independent of photosynthesis persist. This discovery is inspiring for astrobiologists. If life can exist beneath the Antarctic ice sheet, it might also exist under the ice of Europa, a moon of Jupiter. Lacking eyes, light, and rapid metabolic processes, yet alive. In complete darkness, in the eternal cold, it clings tenaciously to every atom of energy. Fact number 76. Your fingers retain information, even when your conscious mind does not. This is due to motor memory, the body's capacity to perform complex actions unconsciously. Having learned to ride a bicycle, play musical scales, or touch type, you may forget the specifics, but your hands will not. Magnetic resonance imaging studies have demonstrated that learning movements activates the motor cortex, cerebellum, and basal ganglia. With repetition, control transfers to deeper brain structures, automating the action. Step-by-step conscious thought is no longer necessary. Crucially, this memory persists even after extended periods of inactivity. A musician who hasn't played for years can reproduce a complex piece after only a few minutes. Researchers hypothesize that motor memory doesn't merely record movements, but constructs activation schemes that function as pre-programmed templates. Even amnesia sometimes fails to erase these schemes. Patients with complete biographical amnesia have been known to retain skills like sewing, swimming, or playing tennis. Your body is a repository of knowledge, with your hands and feet serving as skilled accessors, knowing precisely where to locate the required information, even if the name is forgotten. Fact number 77. The human skin possesses the ability to perceive sound. Not in the literal sense, as with ears, but its role in speech recognition is far greater than previously assumed. Research undertaken at the University of British Columbia in the early 2000 decade demonstrated that when a person experiences a sound concurrently with tactile vibration, such as a gentle breeze on the neck or face, the brain integrates these signals into a unified perception. This is particularly noticeable with voiceless consonants like P or T. These sounds are accompanied by a subtle puff of air, usually imperceptible, yet registered by the skin. In the experiment, participants listened to sounds while a weak, synchronized airstream was directed at their necks. The presence of this air impulse significantly improved recognition accuracy. Therefore, hearing is not solely an auditory function. It's a complex interplay of various sensory channels. Lip reading, for example, involves not only vision, but also microscopic air movements, vibrations, and even temperature variations. Consequently, understanding speech in a concert hall or noisy club depends less on hearing acuity and more on the body's overall sensory input. We perceive sound not only with our ears, we perceive it with our skin, eyes, sense of balance, and even bones. Every conversation is far more than just sound. Fact number 78. A fish inhabiting the deep ocean possesses the ability to temporarily halt its heartbeat during hunting. This is the swordfish, scientifically known as Xiphias gladius. It can reach speeds exceeding 60 kilometers per hour, and during attacks, its body endures immense pressure, the force of water, resistance, and the necessity for rapid directional changes. Research reveals that at peak acceleration, the swordfish's heart may slow or even cease functioning for brief moments, a mechanism to redistribute blood flow and maximize oxygen delivery to the muscles. This phenomenon, termed hunting bradycardia, is also observed in certain marine mammals such as dolphins. However, in swordfish, this effect is particularly pronounced, with heart rate potentially halving. Concurrently, thermal organs situated in the head become active. The swordfish possesses areas capable of warming its brain and eyes, thus maintaining responsiveness and visual clarity in frigid waters. This heating is a consequence of a unique metabolic process, characterized by extremely rapid fat metabolism. Consequently, for a split second, the swordfish attains peak predatory efficiency, enhanced vision, taut muscles, and a temporarily inactive heart. When its bill lunges forward, everything operates in perfect synchronization, with extraordinary speed. Fact number 79 details a remarkable phenomenon: ants constructing living bridges using their own bodies. Ants such as Eciton burcheli, found in South America, demonstrate this unusual behavior. When confronted with an obstruction, such as a crack or ravine, worker ants interlock, creating a chain for the passage of other ants. This is not a simple individual instinct. It's a dynamic, adaptable structure. Each ant evaluates the weight, tension, and angle, deciding whether to remain part of the bridge or move on. Princeton University scientists have shown that the bridge is not static, it breathes. Increased ant traffic leads to a denser structure. Decreased traffic results in its dispersal. Moreover, ants can adjust the bridge's length and position, balancing efficiency and resource expenditure. If the bridge becomes excessively long and requires too many ants, it automatically shortens to preserve the workforce. This illustrates the colony's distributed intelligence. There is no central command. Instead, a system of individual decisions results in collective action. Therefore, the anthill is more than just a habitat. It's an organism where ants function as cells rather than individuals. By forming a bridge, they are not simply crossing an obstacle. They are demonstrating unity. We are together, the way. Fact number 80. The smell of space is fried meat and metal. Astronauts returning from orbit have consistently reported a peculiar odor perceived upon re-entry and spacesuit removal. The absence of air in space logically precludes the existence of smells. Nevertheless, particles accumulating on the exterior of spacesuits and equipment react with the oxygen inside the spacecraft, generating a distinct aroma. Descriptions vary, ranging from ozone to a blend of heated metal, welding fumes, charred steak, and roasted ore. Chemical analysis suggests this is a consequence of the interaction between atomic oxygen, ultraviolet radiation, and ionized particles. These elements break down surface molecules in the vacuum of space, forming volatile compounds upon atmospheric re-entry. Remarkably, this odor has been replicated. Omega Ingredients, under contract with NASA, created a scent for astronaut training. Its purpose is to mitigate stress associated with this unexpected sensory experience. In essence, space is not merely dark, cold, and silent, it possesses a surprisingly pungent and recognizable scent. A reminder that even in the void, traces of the perceptible remain, detectable by smell. 81st fact. Certain lizard species, such as the plumed basilisk, Basiliscus plumifrons, and iguanas, have a secondary heart in their tails. This is not figurative language. It's a verifiable anatomical feature. When these lizards move, especially when climbing vertically or jumping, blood must flow against gravity up their long bodies. The main heart alone is inadequate for this task. Evolution has provided a solution. A muscular vascular node at the base of the tail acts as an auxiliary pump. Contractions of the tail muscles push venous blood back towards the heart, improving circulation. This is especially important during strenuous activity when the primary heart is under significant strain. In some cases, this tail pump can partially compensate for blood loss after an injury, like losing a tail. Research also shows a link between the activity of this structure and the rate of tail regeneration. The tail essentially pumps life back into the body. This is a rare example of a direct, not metaphorical connection between movement and blood circulation. Even when a lizard hides, leaving only a twitching tail, a portion of its life force continues to pulse within it. 82nd fact. Snakes have the ability to detect heat using their eyes. Pythons, boas, and rattlesnakes are equipped with specialized infrared receptors known as pit organs, situated in the indentations between their eyes and nostrils. These organs register the thermal radiation emitted by living organisms, enabling the snakes to see in total darkness. A study carried out at the University of California demonstrated that the heat-sensitive channels within these pit organs respond to temperature variations as small as fractions of a degree. Consequently, a snake can identify, for instance, a mouse moving 1 meter away, even if it's completely concealed. Moreover, the snake's brain integrates both visual and infrared information to create a unified composite perception, resembling that of a thermal imaging device. This provides the predator with a significant advantage in environments characterized by complete darkness or dense foliage. In controlled laboratory experiments, snakes successfully attacked heated models that simulated movement. Certain researchers refer to pit organs as the reptile's sixth sense, as they generate a distinct thermal map of the surroundings, separate from visual and olfactory senses. Therefore, the snake perceives not light but heat. Even if you are concealed, believing yourself unseen, the snake might already be seeing your heat signature. 83rd fact. Octopuses possess 3 hearts. 2 cease functioning while swimming. During locomotion, the octopus's lateral hearts, responsible for pumping blood through the gills, become inactive, leaving only the central systemic heart operational. This appears counterintuitive. Organisms typically require maximal oxygen during movement. However, octopuses function differently. Their blood contains copper, not iron, the respiratory pigment hemocyanin, which exhibits greater efficiency in cold water but reduced efficiency during periods of high activity. Under strenuous activity, hemocyanin's oxygen transport capacity is insufficient, making it advantageous for the organism to deactivate a portion of its circulatory system rather than overloading it. The octopus is not a swift animal. It excels at camouflage and sudden, short bursts of speed. It primarily crawls along the seabed rather than swimming. Consequently, its circulatory system is adapted to brief periods of intense activity and extended periods of rest. Researchers hypothesize that this tricardiac system is an ancient adaptation to deep, cold water environments. Furthermore, following swimming, cardiac synchronization is rapidly restored. Therefore, the octopus is not merely an unusual mollusk, but an organism whose life support system operates on a cycle of activation and deactivation. It resembles an internal, intelligent automation system. 84th fact. The brain has no pain receptors. It does not sense its own wounds. This is a seeming contradiction. The organ responsible for experiencing all sensations is itself insensitive to pain. This is the reason some neurosurgical procedures are carried out with the patient conscious, such as during the removal of a tumor in sensitive areas. The surgeon opens the skull, reveals the brain's cortex, and the patient communicates, moves their fingers, and responds. They feel no pain. Pain originates from the bones, skin, and blood vessels, not the neurons themselves. This finding resulted in the development of awake craniotomy, a technique allowing the surgeon to receive immediate feedback during the operation. However, this lack of sensation in the brain has a drawback. Injuries, tumors, and inflammation can progress without symptoms until they affect surrounding sensitive structures. Furthermore, a headache does not originate within the brain tissue. Its sources are the blood vessels, meninges, and nerves. In other words, the brain processes pain information but does not experience pain itself. This is analogous to a conductor's box without a loudspeaker system. He directs the orchestra of sensations but cannot hear if the walls are crumbling. Therefore, when someone says, "I have a headache," it is not the brain complaining. The pain originates from the structure surrounding it. 85th fact. Human saliva, and the saliva of many other animals, possesses the remarkable ability to accelerate the healing process of wounds. This is due to the presence of a complex mixture of proteins and enzymes within saliva, one key component being epidermal growth factor. This factor significantly stimulates the proliferation of skin cells, thereby accelerating tissue regeneration. Consequently, minor oral wounds heal considerably faster than comparable wounds on the skin. However, the benefits of saliva extend beyond this. Histatin, a protein found in saliva, exhibits potent antibacterial and antifungal properties. It functions as a natural antiseptic, effectively preventing infection before the immune system becomes fully engaged. Animal studies have demonstrated that the application of saliva to wounds leads to a reduction in inflammation and a stimulation of angiogenesis, the formation of new blood vessels. The instinctual licking of wounds is an evolutionarily conserved behavior in dogs, cats, primates, and humans. Rodents, however, display this behavior to an exceptional degree. Rats, for instance, can completely heal wounds through licking, exhibiting minimal susceptibility to infection. Furthermore, research conducted in the early 2000 years identified neurotrophins in saliva, substances capable of stimulating nerve cell growth. While not yet employed therapeutically, their potential is undeniably substantial. Therefore, the seemingly simple act of licking a scratch or burn is far more significant than it may appear. It represents an innate healing mechanism, and our first experience with healing originates from our own mouths. Fact number 86. Human cells are descendants of bacteria. While this assertion might appear surprising, it explains the origin of mitochondria, the energy producers within cells. Approximately 2 billion years ago, a precursor to the eukaryotic cell is thought to have absorbed an aerobic bacterium. However, instead of digestion, the cell incorporated the bacterium as a partner. This resulted in symbiosis. The bacterium provided energy, while the cell offered protection and nutrients. Eventually, the bacterium evolved into a mitochondrion, losing some of its genome but retaining its ability to divide and generate ATP, the universal energy molecule. Mitochondria retain their own DNA, circular like bacterial DNA. They reproduce independently of cell division, are susceptible to antibiotics, and their membrane structure is bacterial. Therefore, each cell contains a descendant of an ancient symbiotic bacterium. Furthermore, all mitochondria are maternally inherited. The egg cell transmits them, unlike the sperm cell. This led scientists to hypothesize the existence of mitochondrial Eve, a woman who lived approximately 150,000 years ago, from whom all modern humans are descended through the maternal line. Human energy is a reflection of an ancient pact between two cells. This union has remained unbroken. 87th fact. A unique ecosystem exists within the Romanian caves, possessing an atmosphere unlike anything seen on Earth for hundreds of millions of years. Movile Cave, unearthed in 1986 near the Black Sea, has remained isolated from the surface for more than 5 million years. Sealed tightly by limestone and clay, it is impervious to light, wind, and rain. The cave's air is rich in hydrogen sulfide and carbon dioxide, with minimal oxygen. Despite this toxic environment, life flourishes. Scientists have identified over 50 species, many unique to this location. These include white spiders, blind scorpions, millipedes, and bacteria that feed on sulfur. Unlike typical photosynthetic ecosystems, this one relies on chemosynthesis. Bacteria transform the chemical energy of hydrogen sulfide into organic compounds, which sustain other organisms. This is one of the few places on Earth where life doesn't depend on sunlight. Researchers refer to Movile as a temporal bubble, its conditions mirroring those of the Earth during the Devonian period. Studying its inhabitants offers insights into the planet's past and the potential for life on other celestial bodies, such as the subglacial oceans of Europa or Enceladus. Movile is more than just a unique environment. It demonstrates life's ability to persist even under the most extreme conditions. 88th fact. Each inhalation involves air previously present in the lungs of other humans, animals, volcanoes, and even dinosaurs. A single cubic meter of air comprises roughly 25 sectillion molecules. Atmospheric mixing ensures that the nitrogen and oxygen molecules you exhale disperse globally within a few years. Scientific calculations indicate a near-certain probability, almost 100%, that you are currently inhaling at least one molecule from Julius Caesar's final exhalation. This applies equally to any other organism that has ever lived on Earth. Nitrogen, the primary constituent of air, exhibits exceptional stability. It doesn't decompose, settle, or readily react under ordinary conditions. Consequently, it circulates for centuries. Each breath represents a fragment of humanity's collective respiration, a component of a storm, a part of the ocean breeze. In essence, we literally breathe history. Inhalation provides more than just oxygen. It delivers the collective memory of the biosphere. Air is not merely a gas. It functions as an archive, which we consult 16 times per minute. 89th fact. Spiders possess the ability to fly without wings and without jumping. This is known as ballooning. The spider elevates its abdomen, extrudes extremely fine silk threads, and air currents transport it tens, sometimes hundreds of kilometers. Flights exceeding 4 kilometers in altitude have been recorded, nearly the altitude of an airplane. Scientists previously believed this to be passive wind dispersal. Research at the University of Mainz, however, demonstrated that spiders detect not only wind currents but also the Earth's electrical field. Before flight, they ascend to an elevated position, probe the air with their forelegs, and evaluate the electrostatic conditions. The silk becomes charged, repelling from the similarly charged Earth's surface, generating lift. This explains the spider's ability to launch even in still air. For young spiders, ballooning serves as a dispersal mechanism. For adults, it is a survival tactic. They utilize it to escape depleted habitats, evade threats, or traverse aquatic obstacles. These minuscule navigators employ principles of physics at a level only recently grasped by physicists. Without engines, without wings, only the field's force, the thread's length, and the precise timing of launch. Their parachute is an understanding of the wind, and each flight is a leap of faith on molecular threads. 90th fact: human skin is bioluminescent. While imperceptible to the naked eye, scientists at the Tokyo Institute of Technology have used highly sensitive cameras to detect a faint light emission from the entire body. This bioluminescence is a product of metabolic processes. The intensity of this light fluctuates throughout the day, peaking around 4 in the afternoon and reaching its minimum around 4 in the morning. The light emission is linked to oxidative processes within cells, where free radicals interact with lipids and proteins, resulting in photon emission. This is not infrared radiation, but visible spectrum photons, though their number is too low for human eyes to detect. Interestingly, the face emits more light than the chest or abdomen, and the left side is slightly brighter than the right. The reasons for this asymmetry are currently unknown. Researchers hypothesize that the intensity of this bioluminescence could reflect overall metabolic state and may one day serve as a painless diagnostic tool. Unlike fluorescence, which requires an external light source, bioluminescence originates internally. Therefore, even at rest, the body continuously emits photons every second. You are literally glowing, albeit at a level currently only detectable by highly sensitive cameras in total darkness. Interestingly, the face emits more light than the chest or abdomen, and the left side is slightly brighter than the right. The reasons for this asymmetry are currently unknown. Researchers hypothesize that the intensity of this bioluminescence could reflect overall metabolic state and may one day serve as a painless diagnostic tool. Unlike fluorescence, which requires an external light source, bioluminescence originates internally. Therefore, even at rest, the body continuously emits photons every second. You are literally glowing, albeit at a level currently only detectable by highly sensitive cameras in total darkness. Fact number 91. Certain animal species possess the ability to reproduce without the genetic contribution of a second parent. This phenomenon is known as parthenogenesis, or virgin birth. The process involves the development of an egg cell into a fully formed organism without fertilization. While this is exceptional for most species, it is the standard reproductive method for others. Examples include stick insects, Phasmatodea, certain lizard species, and some sharks. In 2006, a female hammerhead shark at a Nebraska zoo produced offspring without ever having contact with a male. DNA testing confirmed that the offspring inherited its genome solely from its mother. In reptiles, parthenogenesis frequently occurs in isolated environments. For instance, in the lizard Aspidoscelis neomexicana, all individuals are female, and reproduction takes place exclusively without males. The mechanism involves chromosome duplication within the egg cell, resulting in a complete diploid set, which then initiates zygote division. However, parthenogenesis has a drawback: reduced genetic diversity. This renders the offspring more susceptible to diseases and environmental shifts. Yet, as a survival mechanism, it can save a population. Scientists believe parthenogenesis is an ancient reproductive strategy that has persisted in species inhabiting unstable or isolated environments. It's nature's response to the absence of a mate. If finding a partner is impossible, the species perpetuates itself. Despite sounding like science fiction, such births occur in reality, without witnesses, driven solely by the will to survive. Fact number 92. A human body possesses an organ discovered only in the 21st century, exceeding the skin in weight. This is interstitial tissue, also known as intercellular space, a system of extremely fine, fluid-filled channels pervading the entire body. It remained undetected for a considerable time due to the methodology employed in preparing samples for microscopy. The fluid evaporated, causing the tissue to collapse and lose its structure. Only in 2018 did researchers at New York University, utilizing an endoscope with laser microscopy, reveal an extensive network of dynamic channels beneath the skin, within the walls of blood vessels and surrounding organs, all interconnected. These are not mere spaces, but rather an active system facilitating exchange, shock absorption, and potentially communication. Interstitial fluid serves as a buffer against impacts, regulates pressure, and participates in signal transmission. Furthermore, a hypothesis suggests that cancer cells spread through these channels similar to underground tunnels. Some scientists consider interstitial tissue a new organ, the largest in terms of mass. It is analogous to an internal river, previously unknown, and it flows silently with every movement. Fact 93. Fossils are capable of preserving evidence of lightning strikes. Fulgurites serve as a prime example. These are glass tubes created when lightning hits sand. The temperature at the impact point reaches 30,000 degrees Celsius, exceeding the temperature of the sun's surface. The sand melts immediately, and the solidified melt forms delicate hollow structures resembling roots or blood vessels. These formations can penetrate several meters into the ground, retaining the direction of the electrical discharge. Each fulgurite is unique, much like a unique signature. Researchers study these formations to gain a better understanding of lightning patterns in prehistory. In certain instances, fulgurites are discovered in layers millions of years old, preserving remnants of the ancient atmosphere and isotopes briefly exposed to high temperatures. This is essentially a time capsule. Additionally, in the early 2000 years, it was demonstrated that lightning strikes on phosphorus-rich soil can lead to the formation of phosphides, compounds hypothesized to have played a crucial role in the origin of life. Therefore, lightning acts not only as a destructive force, but also as a chemical creator. It leaves its mark with light, solidifying a moment into stone. Observing a fulgurite, one can perceive the petrified wrath of the heavens or a fleeting touch from the earth. Fact number 94. Animals can laugh. This has been proven through experiments, initially with primates and subsequently extended to rodents, canines, and even avian species. Chimpanzees, bonobos, and gorillas exhibit laughter as interrupted breathing during tickling, playful activities, or joyful stimulation. Rats produce ultrasonic vocalizations, rapid bursts of sound at approximately 50 kilohertz during play, running, or when receiving affection. Researchers at Humboldt University conditioned rats to associate tickling with positive feelings, resulting in the rats laughing anticipatorily, before the hand even touched them. In dogs, behavioral scientists observe laughter as a distinctive breathing pattern, interrupted yet non-aggressive, unlike typical panting. Birds, particularly parrots, are capable of not only mimicking human laughter, but also employing it during play. Laughter serves as a social signal, a means of communicating. I am not a threat. I am enjoying myself. Let's continue. Its development precedes the emergence of speech and complex behaviors. It's an ancient emotion ingrained by nature into communication systems. When you hear laughter, even from a rat, you perceive more than just sound. You hear an affirmation. I am alive. I feel. I am with you. Fact number 95. The water molecules in your glass could be older than the sun. This is not hyperbole, but a conclusion reached by astrochemists researching the origins of matter in interstellar space. Water is formed in space long before stars form, when hydrogen and oxygen atoms, settling on dust particles within cold nebulae, undergo reactions to create ice. These molecules persisted through the collapse of the protosolar nebula and became part of the material that constituted Earth. Analysis of the isotopic makeup of comets and meteorites reveals that a substantial portion of Earth's water is extraterrestrial. This is primordial water, delivered by celestial bodies that formed before the sun's birth, over 4.5 billion years ago. Therefore, when you drink water, you interact with a substance that journeyed through space, witnessed stellar formation, and eventually became part of your cells. These molecules may have arrived on proto-Earth within icy asteroids, remained within the planet's depths, or circulated in clouds, rivers, and living organisms. Their path is not merely a cycle, but a narrative spanning billions of years. The sensation of quenching thirst is, in essence, a resonance of galactic history. Fact number 96. The human ability to taste water refutes the long-standing misconception of its tastelessness. In the early 2000s, neuroscientists identified a specific response to pure water within the tongue's sensory receptors. Research on mice at the California Institute of Technology demonstrated that water intake activates cells distinct from those responding to salty, sour, sweet, or bitter stimuli. These cells react to alterations in the ionic balance of saliva. Their activity changes as saliva is diluted by water. The areas of the tongue associated with sour taste exhibit heightened sensitivity to water. This is likely an evolutionary adaptation. Pure water is scarce in nature, and the capacity to differentiate it from other liquids containing salts, acids, or toxins offers a significant survival advantage. Certain animals, such as cats, possess specialized receptors designed to detect water molecules. Furthermore, thirst intensifies receptor sensitivity. In a dehydrated organism, the taste of water is amplified. This is not an illusion, but rather an inherent feedback mechanism. Therefore, the taste of water is not the absence of taste, but a subtle signal the body can perceive. Paying close attention to this signal reveals that water is not void. It conveys information. Fact number 97. Certain tree species possess the ability to communicate via an underground network. This is not figurative language, but a genuine ecosystem, termed the Wood Wide Web by researchers. This network is based on mycorrhizae, a symbiotic relationship between tree roots and fungi. The fungal network, penetrating the soil, links dozens and sometimes hundreds of plants, creating an underground system for exchanging substances, signals, and, conventionally, information. Through this system, one tree can transfer nutrients to another. For instance, a mature tree provides nourishment to a younger, shaded tree. Alternatively, an infected tree alerts its neighbors using chemical signals, prompting them to activate their defense mechanisms. Studies conducted by Suzanne Simard in Canada demonstrated that birch and spruce trees exchange carbon depending on the season, assisting each other in overcoming light deficiencies. Central trees within this network, referred to as mother trees, provide sustenance not only to their offspring but also to other saplings. Consequently, a forest is more than just a grouping of trees. It is a community capable of adaptive mutual support. While standing in a forest, one might perceive stillness. However, beneath the surface lie millions of interconnected pathways functioning in a coordinated manner, much like a heart. Fact number 98. The human brain possesses the ability to learn while sleeping. This does not imply the possibility of learning a foreign language by simply leaving a playlist playing nearby. Nevertheless, neuroscientific research has demonstrated that, under specific conditions, the brain can acquire new information during slow-wave sleep. In a study employing odors and sounds paired with visual stimuli, participants were presented with images accompanied by particular scents or tones. These same odors or sounds were then replayed during their sleep. Following awakening, participants exhibited enhanced recall of the associated images. A further study revealed that reproducing rhythms corresponding to the positions of objects on a screen led to improved performance on spatial orientation tasks post-sleep. This is attributed to the process of memory consolidation. During sleep, the brain transfers short-term memories into long-term storage, mainly within the hippocampus. Incoming stimuli during this phase can influence which memories are preserved. Naturally, sleep learning necessitates precise calibration. An excessively loud sound will cause awakening, while an excessively quiet sound will go unnoticed. However, the underlying principle has been validated. Consequently, sleep is not a complete cessation of consciousness, but rather a sophisticated background process, and with appropriate stimulation, the brain can retain information without conscious awareness. Fact number 99. The ability of certain turtle species to breathe through their cloaca is a fascinating phenomenon. The cloaca is a multifunctional opening serving excretory, reproductive, and respiratory functions in reptiles. This unique respiratory mechanism has been observed in certain freshwater turtle species, including the Australian snapping turtle, Imidura, and the North American softshell turtle, Apollon. These turtles have specialized, capillary-rich sacs within their cloaca, cloacal sacs, facilitating gas exchange with the surrounding water. This adaptation allows these turtles to remain submerged for extended periods. In cold water, with its reduced metabolic rate, this cloacal respiration allows them to remain underwater for hours without surfacing for air, and in some cases to overwinter in a dormant state beneath the ice. The efficiency of this system is due to the large surface area of the cloacal sacs, their thin walls, and the stimulation of water flow by hind limb muscle movements. Essentially, the turtle can breathe through its cloaca without engaging its lungs. This represents a remarkable example of adaptation for biologists, repurposing an existing structure for a new function without major organismal restructuring. In environments with limited air availability, even the cloaca can become a lifeline. The 101st fact. At the subatomic level, the notions of past and future become indistinct. Quantum physics features a phenomenon known as quantum entanglement. When two particles interact, their states become correlated, and a change in one instantaneously affects the other, irrespective of the distance separating them. Even more peculiar is the principle of weak measurement and quantum retrocausality. In experiments resembling John Wheeler's delayed choice, a measurement performed after a particle traverses a system influences the particle's behavior in the past. For instance, a photon passing through an interferometer acts as a wave or a particle depending on which detector is engaged, even if the detector is activated after the photon's passage. This contradicts the linear conception of time. Certain interpretations, including the two-directional model of Yakir Aharonov and Lev Weidman, propose that the future can influence the past as the past influences the future. At the macroscopic scale, everything adheres to thermodynamics, but at the quantum level, causality is not a mandatory rule, but a possibility. Consequently, time is not a straight line, but a complex network of interdependencies. In this context, when observing stars whose light has journeyed for millions of years, you are not merely observing the past. It might be observing you in response.